Uh-oh.
Tilt it to the side a little bit.
This way?
Yeah, exactly.
All right. How's lunch going? Good? Oh, several thumbs up. You guys were fast with that, too. And better to use hand signals than to have to talk, of course. So that was very well done in this front table. You guys were totally teed up for that. We didn't even plan that. That was amazing. All right, we're going to kick off the afternoon segments here. We've got a spectacular lineup. And I'm going to make sure we got everybody ready to roll here before I do introductions. All right, everybody ready? Yes, no, maybe so? Well, I'm delighted to introduce our first speaker of the afternoon, Wayne Skipper, who has actually been a longtime LinkedIn friend of mine. Follow a lot of his posts, and it's delighted to see folks like that in person. But he describes himself as both an engineer and an artist. And I didn't actually think that those two things existed together. So I love that in terms of your background and description. But Wayne is the CEO of Concentric Sky, is going to talk to us a little bit about digital badging and credentials. So with that, Wayne Skipper.
Hello, everyone. Well, with that intro, hi, Jeremiah, I'm going to have to talk about art a little bit. I wasn't going to talk about that at all. But part of my background is in digital technology. And so I like to visualize the beauty of complex data systems using interactive LEDs. And if that's an area of interest to you, I'd invite you to look at our website, lightatplay.net. Some of my work has been displayed in the Smithsonian, the National Academy of Sciences, but that's really a side project and not why I'm here today. So I'm the founder and CEO of Concentric Sky, and we are a 14-year-old custom software engineering company that builds technology for some of the most prominent organizations in the world. We build everything from award-winning user experiences to analytic systems that handle 1 trillion records a day in real time. And that's not just big data, that is massive scale data. We are probably best known, however, for our product, Badger, which is one of the leading digital credentialing systems in the world. So there we go. So our platform over the last 4 years or so has grown from inception to a platform that counts 12,000 issuing partners spanning 100 countries and a user base that's over 20 million around the world. So we've gotten some traction. And what we're doing now is launching a new initiative that I think will be very interesting to people in this room and to many other people in the world because it solves a key problem. And before I describe that, I want to do a little background setting so that we're all on the same page about the current state of digital credentials and blockchain and related technologies. So I'll just dive in. So our vision is very simple, right? This should be the experience of somebody that earns a credential, right? You don't think about how deep the pins go or how far apart they are when you go to plug something into the wall, right? There are regional variations, but the experience of buying something, plugging it into your house and making use of it, the way you wire that into the house is not a factor in your buying decision. And this is what we think we really need to do in the world of credentials spanning K-12, workforce, higher education, and the entire lifelong learning journey of a learner. It needs to be this simple for people to make use of their credentials. And we're already making great strides in that direction. So my company wrote Badger back in 2015 because we were tapped by the MacArthur Foundation to write a technology standard called Open Badges 2.0. I'm sure everyone here has heard about digital badges. There are a few of them in the world now. I would estimate about 30 million issued around the world. And there are two key things that I like to make sure that people understand about digital badges. The first is that a badge is not a digital sticker. It's not just a picture that anybody can hold up and say, I have this credential. What we did is we took the PNG and the SVG file formats and encoded into those JSON data, which is digitally verifiable. It's portable, it's secure, it's verifiable, right? So it's not just a digital sticker. And the second thing I like to make sure that people understand about digital badges is that they are not a new form of credential. And this is something that really trips people up, thinking that we have this existing nomenclature of degrees and diplomas and certifications and certificates. Well, badges, great, throw them on the pile. We use them for something. But the purpose of the badge specification is to allow you to express any credential in a machine-readable way. Right? So you can express those degrees, those diplomas, any type of certification in a machine-readable object that's portable. That's what open badges do, right? So it's not something that you have to use just for gamification, right? It's not something that you have to align specifically to a skill, although they are highly useful for that purpose. They are a way of creating a common language for learning. And this was the original vision of the Mozilla and MacArthur Foundations and us as we started doing this work. So earlier this year, Mozilla announced that they had passed to my company their central role in the digital badges ecosystem, right? So our system is now the backpack through which all digital badges in the world flow. So this allows us to take academic credentials, professional certifications, on-the-job training, volunteer work, and any other sort of learning achievement, which is now expressed in this common machine-readable format, and then put those into a central location spanning all platforms, where a learner can now curate the artifacts of their learning. And this is the backpack, and this is the system that Mozilla handed to us. So I like to say that Badger isn't just a product, Badger is infrastructure. Badger is the connective tissue that connects hundreds of different badging systems and platforms around the world, and it gives us a very unique view into what's happening in the world of digital credentials. So while we were writing Open Badges 2.0, we quickly realized as we were digging into the space that credentials don't exist in a vacuum. Right? A credential is not a one-off thing. A credential is part of a lifelong learning journey. And you can only understand a credential as it relates to other credentials and other types of learning activities. So we wrote another technology standard to allow people to describe this. And that technology standard is called Open Pathways. And what Open Pathways allow you to do is to stack digital credentials from any platform into a system of meaning. That system of meaning can be a competency framework or a traditional curriculum. So what you see here are two different pathways that are connected by a badge, right? So you see that pathway 1 might be a Badger badge stacked with a Moodle badge, stacked with a D2L badge, a Blackboard badge, a badge from any Open Badges platform. Can now be stacked together into a system of meaning that results in new credentials and new opportunities. There's a lot of talk about how we unbundle the degree and how we create stackable pathways. This is the technology that makes it possible, and it's already in widespread use in the world today. So a few examples. Pathway 1 might be a K-12 badge that is part of an AP program for dual enrollment in a community college that then articulates in and begins a pathway at that community college. That's a real-world use case for us. We do that today. Or pathway 1 might be a CTE credential for hospitality or medical coding or something like that then articulates into a 4-year program. That is another real-world use case for us. We do that today. Right? Or pathway 1 might be a credential that is a continuing ed credential offered in a higher education setting that then articulates into an employer training program. That is another real-world use case for us. We do that today. So what you can see is that each one of these pathways is a digital object that's portable in the same way that an open badge is portable and results in what we call a digital transcript. Right? So you can think about a competency framework as a way of describing learning activities and how they relate to each other. A pathway turns that into a navigable system, and the user's progress through that system is their transcript. And this is how we tie all of these things together at the data level. So where does this data live, right? Because now we have transcript A, that's a K-12 transcript, or maybe A through Z, those are all K-12. And then you have the B series, right? And maybe those are higher ed, 2-year, 4-year transcripts. And then you have employer training records. you have continuing ed and professional development for professionals. Now we have a common language, not just for the credentials, but for their relationships to each other that allow us to stack them together into a machine-readable, lifelong learning record. And this work is the basis of what's known as the Comprehensive Learner Record, which you may have heard of, as well as the work that's being done at Arizona State on their Trusted Learner Network. These are the technologies that we can use to take all of this information and make it machine readable. But now where does it live, right? Because we're not talking about a K-12 transcript anymore that belongs to a high school or a higher ed transcript that belongs to the institution. Where does this data reside? And the answer is that it resides on the blockchain. And so what we've done is we've taken this combined learner record and written it to a blockchain that is shared across multiple types of institutions. And I don't really have time to get into the pros and cons of various approaches to blockchain. I think that a lot of people are just trying to check the box so that they can say their systems are blockchain enabled. But I wrote an article for EDUCAUSE Reviewed called "Is Blockchain Ready for Prime Time in Education?" And I'd invite you to look at that if you're interested in our thoughts on blockchain. But how do we make sure that as this transcript is moving from point A to point B, that it is understandable to different types of organizations? And as it turns out, the answer to that question answers a lot of other questions, right? Because what we need is a shared taxonomy of skills that we can use to make sure that we can align student learning outcomes with the needs of employers. And we can do this in a way that's understandable to all. And so what we are announcing is the Open Taxonomy Project, which is a set of tools designed to facilitate skills mapping. If you're doing skills mapping today, you're probably doing it on spreadsheets, right? But what we need is a set of skills mapping tools that will allow us to do mapping at large, context dependent, that results in the sorts of machine readable structures that we need for the future of work. And I invite you to look at the site at opentaxonomy.org. And there's a little bit of information there. It is an early stage project, so don't expect to find a lot there. But if you're interested in learning more, I invite you to write me. My email address is here on the screen. And so wayne@concentricsky.com, and I'm happy to chat about this if you're interested in being involved in it at all. It looks like my time is up, so thank you very much.
How many of you are on LinkedIn? Connected on LinkedIn? Have you ever learned the little parlor trick of how you figure out who in the room is on LinkedIn? Anybody know how to do this? Okay, so if you want to participate, take out your phones. Make sure your Bluetooth is enabled. So make sure Bluetooth is on. Open up your LinkedIn app, and when you open it up at the bottom menu, there's the little two-person silhouette symbol. Click on that, and then you'll see in the bottom right, there's a kind of a blue symbol that has the silhouette of a person with the plus sign. Click on that as well. And then it'll pull up a menu, and one of the options is Find Nearby. Select Find Nearby, and it's going to pull up everybody in the room who's enabled their Bluetooth and is on LinkedIn. So hopefully now you're all going to be in a position to add at least, I don't know, Jamae, how many people are here? She told me 500. I'm a little skeptical about the 500 number, but hopefully you guys will add at least several dozen LinkedIn connected friends here of all like-minded folks who are working in this space. So was that good? Was that cool? Fun? Neat little parlor trick? All right. I hope I get a lot of friend invites. With that, I'm pleased to introduce Ellen Galinsky, who's the president of Families and Work Institute, and I'm very eager to hear about some of the insights she's going to share with us. So without further ado, Ellen.
It's a joy to be here with you today. It's my first Close It Summit, and it won't be my last. It's really been so exciting to be here. You will also see that I am the Chief Science Officer at the Bezos Family Foundation, and I'm going to be speaking from both from my work at Bezos and at the Families and Work Institute. I'm going to bring a slightly unusual perspective. We've been doing so much talking about skills these days, and I look at skills through the workforce and the workplace, but also through cognitive neuroscience. And you heard a little bit of that perspective earlier, but that's what I'm going to share. 10 lessons from developmental research, particularly from cognitive neuroscience, across the lifespan. And the reason that I'm doing that is because we can look at behavior, but unless we go deeper, we can't really understand very much. That's a wonderful quote from Jerry Kagan at Harvard. If we're really going to bring about the kind of change that we think we need, we can't wait till kids are in high school or in whatever their secondary education is going to be, or post-secondary education. We think at the Bezos Family Foundation that we have to start at the beginning. And the beginning isn't just birth, the beginning is pre-birth, because there are intergenerational transmissions of issues like poverty that can be prevented if with the right kind of interventions. And that's what we're doing now at the foundation. Okay, let me go back. Research shows, and this is from Sam Wang at Princeton, all of these are taken from videos that we've made at the Bezos Family Foundation, that the brain is built like a house being built. It's the foundation for our future learning. Sam says that about 2/3 of 7 trillion connections get formed in 5 years. It's a constant construction project, and every interaction we have with a baby or a young child helps shape who that child is going to be. It's never too late, but it's always better to start at the beginning. So you might say, well, we can't start at the beginning. We work with older kids. And this is just an example from the kind of thing we've done at the Bezos Family Foundation. We've created a curriculum, thank you. We've created a curriculum to share the research that we've been now looking at for 19 years, looking at the emergence of executive function skills. We have an app that we've created, and they're texts too that take 1,000 tips for parents. None of these take any more time or ask for any money from parents. They're tips that you can use in the moments that you have with a child, whether it's feeding or bathing or waiting in line at the supermarket, to build a brain. And we've, using the same principle, working with Mount Sinai Parenting Center, we've created a curriculum that infuses child development knowledge into well-child visits. So the early years are foundational in many ways, particularly in the emergence of skills, because the earliest years are times of enormous brain plasticity. So they're prime times to promote executive function skills. So is adolescence. It's a period second only to infancy in the development of neural changes, and it gives us an opportunity to promote skills that will help young children flourish. This is a new report from the National Academy of Sciences. I've also been working for the last 4 years on a book on adolescent development, so you'll see some of the forthcoming issues that I'm going to touch on. I love the quote from Jennifer Silvers at UCLA, which she says that adolescence is kind of a make it or break it time to begin to learn these important executive function skills. And these are skills that can help us throughout our lives, but as we all know, it's never too late. So among the best skills are executive function skills. What are executive function skills? When I first started to use that term, it sounded like some executive bossing you around in your brain, some guy in a pinstripe suit or lady in a pinstripe suit bossing you around in your brain. But that's not what it is. These are the skills that pull together our social, our emotional, and our cognitive capacities so that we can succeed. And studies are showing that they predict success better than IQ tests, and not just academic success, but health and wealth into adulthood. What are they? The 3 core executive function skills are being able to remember something. This is Clancy Blair's research at NYU. So being able to move those boxes around and remembering which box has the sticker and which box that child has taken a sticker out. Or cognitive flexibility, we talked about that earlier. Being able to put big blocks in a big bucket, or then move and put big blocks in a little bucket, and wait for that goldfish cracker. It's like the marshmallow test, but here it is with goldfish crackers. We've also filmed the marshmallow test. How long can that child wait for that goldfish cracker? These are neurocognitive skills. They're very important. These are skills that are very linked to cognitive capacities and are essential for for goal-directed problem solving. This is Phil Zalazzo's work at the University of Minnesota. So we've talked at the conference about the soft stuff is really the hard stuff. I hope that any time you are tempted to say soft skills or non-cognitive skills, you'll think of brain science and never say it again, because it's simply not true. The best skills are neurocognitive skills, and we have to understand that they're essential in our life for us to thrive, socially, emotionally, cognitively, and our health. Another fourth lesson is about autonomy, supportive caregiving, and teaching. They are the predictor, a major predictor of executive function skills. What does that mean? It means that we don't fix problems for kids. We begin to give kids the skills to be able to fix problems for themselves. Really critical. We do way too much fixing things for kids. I did an experiment with teachers once where I asked them about problems that they faced in their classroom, and 95% of them, this wasn't a study, it was just in a speech, but 95% of them fixed the problems for the kids. So we need to learn to step back and, as kids are able, help them fix their own problems, learn the skills to do so, which I think is critical. So what is autonomy support? It means taking the child's view. It means sharing the reasons why you want something to happen. Ensures that the child plays an active role, joint problem solving, scaffolding, building on what the child can do, and then removing the scaffold as the child can do more for himself or herself, and encourage by giving helpful hints and suggestions for solutions. The fifth lesson is that learning is active. I'm going to go now to infancy research. This is in the lab of Patricia Kuhl at the University of Washington. I'm jumping all over the developmental landscape here because our research covers all of that. You can see the child in that top in a machine that looks like a hairdryer from Mars. That's a MEG machine, M-E-G machine, that enables to take a movie of the child's brain in action. And the question that Pat Kuhl had was, how do children learn language? Most people think that children learn language just by hearing it. It's like sticky. You hear it and you absorb it. That's not true. What she found is, by looking at these 11, 12-month-old children, is that the Broca area of the brain, not just the auditory area of the brain, but the Broca area of the brain was lit up when children were hearing language. That means that they were rehearsing what they were going to need to do to speak. The brain is not a sponge. The brain is active and learning throughout our lives. So if we assume that we're pouring knowledge into an empty vessel, we've got the wrong analogy for thinking about learning. It's not a sponge. It's not an empty vessel. All learning takes place in relationships. It's really critical. Jack Shonkoff, who headed the Neurons to Neighborhoods Task Force, the National Academy of Science, says there is no development. There is no learning without relationships. And that's not true. You know, that's true for big kids, not just little kids. I remember a 7th grader telling me that when he went into the class the first day, he looked at his teacher's eyes. And he could tell from his teacher's eyes whether she liked the kids or not, or he liked the kids or not, and whether the teacher cared about the subject that he or she was teaching. So all relationships takes place in learning. That's Joe Campos's research there, where he shows that kids won't venture over that visual cliff, that check pattern drops down with plexiglass over it, and unless they see an encouraging smile, they won't cross that barrier. They look to us for signals about whether it's safe to venture out. And in that particular experience by Ed Tronick, if the adult makes a still face, which the adult is doing to the child will do anything to try to get the adult to be responsive. It's that back and forth, that give and take through which we learn. And it's not just adults, it's peers. We have I went looking for pictures for this presentation before I decided to use the photographs from our own experiments that we've filmed, where we've filmed research in action. And they were all, you know, if you take learning in school, they're all the kids, the teacher standing in front and kids holding up their hand. We're missing a huge opportunity for people to learn from each other, not just from adults. The seventh issue is the importance of engaged learning. It means promoting intrinsic motivation. It's not just what we do for rewards. It means promoting intrinsic motivations and helping all of us set goals and strategies. That is the core of executive function skills. It means building on and extending learning so that there's that back and forthness that we just saw in those experiments. And it means learning, this is, I think, important, it means enabling reflection. I haven't heard the word reflection, and maybe I've missed it, so if you've said it, I apologize. But in this particular experiment by Phil Zalazzo, the child has the task of, you can see that there's a star there, and sometimes you sort by color, so put the star in the box that's red, or sometimes you sort by shape, put the star where the stars go, and you keep switching. That's cognitive flexibility, working memory, and inhibitory control, all three executive function skills. If you give children a chance to step back and think about why they've made a mistake, then there's actually a neural change. They learn it. If you just say wrong and move on, which is what I see in most classrooms that I visit, the children aren't really learning. If we believe, as the Amazon speaker said, that we have to fail in order to succeed, we need to give people feedback on what they're learning and how to improve it. As Adele Diamond says, joy and challenge are better motivators than fear or anxiety. Development happens in context. And this is Jennifer Pfeiffer from the University of Oregon. She says she remembers the first time she held a brain in her hand. This was in graduate school, and she said, that's it, that's that person. But what she said she didn't realize at that moment is that that's not at all that person. That brain can be completely different in different contexts. Brain development happens in context, so the contexts are critically important. In the Center for the Developing Child, Developing Adolescents, they talk about the importance of those contexts, particularly meeting adolescents' developmental needs. They look at acceptance and belonging and admiration and respect. So as I've been writing my book and interviewing and reading the best research on adolescent development around the world, I've come up with these 8 developmental needs, such as belonging and feeling cared about, or to have autonomy, or to feel supported. In this conference, I have not heard any discussion about the context. We've talked about skills as if they exist in a vacuum, but they don't. And if people, first they're basic needs like, are you hungry? Have you had enough sleep? But then there are these developmental needs that we need to meet, particularly to have a purpose and contribute as we get older, which is, I think, really important. So we're not going to help any of us thrive unless we meet developmental needs. Now I'm going to move to the workplace research and say that adults are more likely to thrive when their developmental needs are being met. At the Families and Work Institute, beginning in 1992, we did nationally representative studies of a large sample of the U.S. workforce, and we could look at those 600 questions in light of engagement, health and well-being, turnover, and job satisfaction, and marital satisfaction, parenting satisfaction, and other sorts of outcomes. And what we found was there are these 7 characteristics of an effective workplace that help us all thrive. So I went, wait, when I started doing this research on adolescents, these are the same kind of developmental needs. Adults have very similar developmental needs as children. So to belong, that really pops out. If people don't feel that they belong in a workplace, they don't do as well. They're not as engaged, and we all know that engagement is a proxy for productivity. So meeting needs at every age is important. I hope that from this conference we won't just pay attention to skills, but we'll pay attention to the context in which skills develop. The 10th issue is employers are looking for people with life skills, and that's been said over and over and over again. There's, yet another example of what employers are looking for. So let's go to the research now and look at how you promote it. That's a study of Carol Dweck, where she's found that if people have a mindset that they can grow and change, they're more likely to be able to take on challenges. I've just picked taking on challenges as one of the developmental needs. Or in this case, if that boy pretends to be Superman, he's more likely to try something hard. He persists for almost a year older level of persistence if he pretends to be someone he admires. In this case, he's chosen Superman. This is adolescent research. If you take a close or far perspective, you look at whatever problem you're facing, and you can step back and look at it from a far perspective, you're more likely to handle it. Or finally, in this particular case, Ethan Kroos at the University of Michigan has shown that if you think of yourself in the third person, you're more likely to be able to take on a challenge. We've talked a lot about adaptability, but I think a critical change is taking on challenges and really teaching that. As Craig Ramey says, we become what we learn. Thank you very much.
How many of you have new LinkedIn friends? Where's Mary, my classmate from Duke, who just, isn't that, she just was like, we graduated the same year. Rock on. Well, we'll talk later. But see, if I hadn't done that parlor trick, we probably wouldn't have figured this out. Hey, here's another one. Speaking of, Ellen's talk reminds me of how big a disconnect we have between what we know from a research perspective versus what we're actually doing from a practice perspective. I mean, there's a lot of really important insights that we're just not activating around. Here's another quick one that I just read a study about last week, and this is actually really relevant. It has to do with anxiety, right? Anxiety we've turned into a very negative emotion when we think about it. And one of the most anxiety-producing things for human beings is speaking in front of other human beings, right? So I'm gonna help this panel prepare their anxiety around this. What we do with anxiety is we think negatively about it, right? Like our framework is to go, oh geez, what if I don't do a good job, or what if I mess up, or right? And so we start to kind of have that compound in anxiety. But the advice and the research now about dealing with anxiety is to talk about the positive aspects of that anxiety, right? To say, yeah, what if I crush this speech right now? The amazing things, right? So turning own the emotion of anxiety is the advice, but turn it into positive statements about what can happen as a result of that. So, a little more tidbit sharing. With that, we've got a great panel on designing a new system, and I'm gonna ask the panel to come up, and I'm gonna introduce Steve Patrick, Vice President of the Aspen Institute.
Hello. I'll kill a little time as our panel comes up. I am Steve Patrick from the Aspen Institute. Good to be with you all. I lived and worked in New Mexico for almost 2 decades, so it's amazing to be home. I'll tell you a little bit about Santa Fe. I didn't live in Santa Fe, so mostly out of jealousy, those of us who lived in other towns used to make fun of Santa Fe a little bit. We called it Fantasy instead of Santa Fe. There's a lot of alternative lifestyles here, so my panelists have been prepared to introduce themselves based on past life experience. Interestingly enough, all of them were either princesses or warriors in a past life. One of them was even a princess warrior. I'm not going to tell you which one, but after the panel, maybe try to figure that out. Okay, kidding aside, it's great to be in New Mexico. Welcome to New Mexico as a one-time New Mexican. My job is to tee this up a little bit about building a new system, a better system, turn it over to the innovators and thought partners who have thought a lot more about that than I have. My role at Aspen, and Jamae asked me to touch on some of that work for my introductory comments, is really to manage a collaborative approach to change in places through something called the Collective Impact Forum, which we co-convene with FSG, www.collectiveimpactforum.org. But also, the biggest thing we do is called the Opportunity Youth Fund and Forum, and we invest in community collaboratives around the country. We've invested over $15 million in building better systems. So you can see where I fall on the do we even need to reinvent. And we come at it from a whole systems perspective and also through an equity lens. And so it's important to think about how the systems currently work. One is, it's not just the workforce system, it's not just the education system, it's all systems. And if you're thinking about a better system through an equity lens, then you have to think about the fact that young people in the child welfare system, transition age youth coming out of foster care, have a less than 6% rate of post-secondary success. Only 6% finish college. They have the highest rates of all the bad and negative numbers. You have to think about the data that says if you're an African-American male who's college age, you're actually more likely to be attached to the justice system than to the higher education system. So in this country, there are structural and institutional barriers that include baked-in racist histories that we have to overcome. So from my own perspective, we have a real opportunity to build a better system that is inclusive of the whole ecology of where people are and where they need to get to be successful in family and career. The last thing I'll say about our work is we're getting there on the Opportunity Youth side of the equity work. We have lots to do with adult learners. We have lots to do with folks who are in the adult education systems here. But we basically fund collaboratives. We fund young people to lead the change around better pathways through something called Opportunity Youth United. And if you work with young people, look that up. And then we fund the roll-up to policy and advocacy. So the good news on Aspen's work is a group that we support, we didn't do the work, called the Campaign for Youth, and a network called Opportunity Youth United, increased federal funding for pathways for young adults in our country by $195 million in the last budget, with young people actually meeting with every member of Congress to get that done. So there's good news on that front. I think, as I pivot to our amazing panelists, I think there's one larger question that we have to grapple with, which is how do you address the policy and practice implications for taking a whole systems approach, because there's so many perverse disincentives for blending and blurring funding in this work. We have a set of folks who are also innovating. The big question for innovation around better pathways and better outcomes, we're not going to get there from my own point of view without innovation. And so we've got thought leaders and innovators, and I'm just going to introduce them by name. You guys can wave, and then ask them to do introductions about their work in the context of how they're focused on what a better system might look like, what a new system might look like. So we have Casey Welch, CEO of Tallo. Casey. Cory Eyler, Vice President and General Manager of Ed2Go. Kevin Perkey, CEO of Workforce Southwest Washington. And Shelly Gore, who's led A Bigger View. And so it's a pleasure to have you guys on this conversation about a better system. I think I actually really want to start with Kevin, and I appreciate your willingness to do so. And part of the question is, you've run multiple WIOA systems. And so, in some ways, you might take umbrage at the question of, do we need to build a better system? But what's your take on that? And please introduce yourself, give folks a sense of how you're coming to this work and what you do.
Yeah, sure. So thank you. Kevin Perkey from the great state of Washington. We're in Vancouver, Washington, not to be confused with Vancouver, BC. We are also a uniquely awesome city like Vancouver, BC, so come visit us at some point. To your question about a better system, so it's true I've run a few workforce boards across country in Pennsylvania and here in the state of Washington, and I would say that the the boards that I work with are always trying to push for a new system. I don't think there would be a hand raised if you asked, should we go back to the days of JTPA? And I promise not to use any more acronyms after that one. But I think what you'll find around the table, especially in national conversations, is thinking about, to your point, about how do we better integrate not only policies but investments that are made across all pools. It was interesting to sort of listen to the conversation earlier about VC to philanthropy. Well, we are stewards in Southwest Washington of about $9 million, making us the largest investor in workforce development in that entire 3-county region. And we think of ourselves as investors first. So the conversation around how do you get impact and ROI for that as stewards of public funds, we really treat ourselves like that, less so than in prior years where it might have been a lot about, what are the types of trainings and that sort of thing. We're really looking at how do you seed innovation through program investments that we're making. So yes, we need to continually evolve the system that we have, for sure.
Great. Let's just bring it around the table.
Yeah. Good afternoon, everyone. Again, Casey Welch with Tallo. A little bit of a background on who we are and what we do is, on the theme of, do we need a new system? We kind of look at it as saying, how do we help design a system that brings everything together? And I think that's one of the big things that we've seen here at the conference. More and more of the conference, I'm hearing more about, there's not going to be one player that changes this whole, workforce system. It's going to take a lot of us together, and us that have specialties in different areas and pulling them together. And one of the biggest attributes in the way we kind of approached it is looking at the workforce as an ecosystem. And again, there's a lot of them going on around the country. Kevin has a great one there we were talking about earlier. And how do you pull them together, and how do you individualize them? And so at Tallo, we wanted to make sure that we had a way where future talent could showcase what their skills and abilities are and do it at an earlier age. And for some students, that talent might be a 4.0 GPA, but for some of them it might be, I can tear apart an engine in a day and put it back together a couple days later. And that's a pretty employable skill today in today's economy. And how do we help really support the future workforce? If it's 4-year education, fantastic. If it's 2-year, great. If it's right into the workforce, great. Maybe it's even military. And I think the part that we're trying to do is how do we have a way to really showcase that talent and really connect them with the opportunities that are out there? We all talked about it. There's a lot of jobs. There's a lot of jobs that need a lot of skills out there. There was numerous ones talked about that. And one of the big aspects are, so these, if we look at it from and Tallo takes the approach more at the future talent pipeline going forward. You have people getting these certifications, these skills. How do we take them and then showcase them and connect them and guide them to say, you can take this credential or ability and you can go 4 different ways. You have the opportunity. I don't think, I'm the one to tell them which path they should take. The bigger thing is let them know there are different paths and there are different opportunities. And so when we're, taking this on, it's going to take everybody. It's going to take post-secondary education. It's going to take innovative companies, workforce, and we all have to come together and play.
Great, thanks. So let's keep going with intros, but just one quick follow-up question. So if I'm a client, first of all, who is the client, and what's my experience with Tallo?
Great question. So we kind of have a two-sided market. So we deal with students across the country, starting as early as age 13, provide really an end-to-end platform, because what we found is, getting through high school, that's one part of it, right? Then transitioning to post-secondary, and then adult. So, we work with students in almost 2 out of every 3 high schools across the country now. They're in 3,000 different colleges. Work with hundreds of companies, large ones, Boeing, BMW, different ones like that, as well as the post-secondary education that are looking to find ways to find and discover this talent, especially in the rural communities. How do you get that opportunity when Boeing's not just going to show up at, my small hometown outside of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania that had 82 students. But there's a lot of people that had skills and abilities there, Steve, and we want to make sure we can connect them.
Great. Thanks for that.
So, so I'm Cory Eyler, Vice President, General Manager of Ed2Go. We are a Cengage company. Most people know Cengage as one of the big publishers out there. Ed2Go is the online continuing education extension of Cengage. We focus, like my friends over here both said, in bringing people together. And we do it through partnership. And so we provide what we call like a turnkey solution that is comprised of a pretty big catalog of skills-based programs, be it all types of different soft skills or going through all these different niche occupations, technology, business, healthcare, so on and so forth. And we offer academic partners the opportunity, as well as with corporations and workforce agencies, to the tune of several thousand across the globe. We offer them, we offer them an opportunity a better way to connect with their communities, serve their communities with less overhead, less cumbersome course building and things like that, as well as with all the wraparound services that we provide with providing a commerce solution, digital storefront, student services, enrollment services, things like that. And so partners use our turnkey solution, if you will, in various ways, depending on the problems that we're trying to help them solve. But again, like helping them reach their communities versus them being in a situation, and this kind of ties to the topic, them being in a situation where in many cases they struggle to do so. Because as everyone knows, it's not new information. There's a funding shortage in most communities throughout the country, and the amount of money that we can invest in creating certain types of products to fill a specific employer's need in your community, and the amount of time, the amount of money, the amount of effort, and all of the other red tape involved, like it's just not a scalable way to conduct business. And for these local schools, these smaller schools especially, or even the school systems, it's very difficult to do that and then to monetize it because they can't just hemorrhage productivity. They can't, they've got to focus on what they do really well. And we provide an element of like agility into that. And we bring high quality, best in class material and other items that like we aggregate across the masses and have all the data, and we're constantly enhancing that so they get all the benefits. And so we connect workforce boards with local community colleges across the country, and this is something we were talking about earlier. And I think we'll get into it here in a minute, but we help facilitate the introduction. We spend time on both sides. We help with getting courses on the ETPL approval list for the state and for the area. And then we help them make it happen for their community. Whereas there's too many barriers, in some cases, not for everybody, but in many cases, there would be too many barriers for them to do that by themselves, right? And so that's the way that we bring it together. I would say, like, if we're talking about like designing a new system or enhancing a system that's already there, that's how we do it. We come in and we try to provide support to everyone with a focus on the learner.
And I'm gonna check myself as the moderator and not ask you 4 questions, so our last panelist can introduce herself, and then I'm going to come back to you guys on some very stimulating questions that came out of your intro. Thank you. Next. Thank you.
Okay, hi, my name is Shelly Gore. I am the CEO of Innovative Systems Group. I'm the co-founder of A Bigger View. I've been an entrepreneur my whole life. I had one job, and then I became an entrepreneur. I am the consumer of all of the people that you are trying to train. I've been so inspired by all the programs because we can never find enough good people, quite frankly, that we could use. I want to give just a little view in how we work, because it is interesting in terms of what we've been talking about in terms of employability. My first job was, I was an undergrad, I was a civil engineering student, and I won a wonderful award to go to Mali, West Africa, which was the second poorest country in the world, with Peace Corps. And I had 3 months to do a water safety research program. And I got there and there was no data, there was nothing. And I went straight to the director and I said, how am I going to ever get this done? And a lot of people were watching what I was doing and I needed to produce something. And she laughed and said, let's build a database. And so that was my first systems experience. I had no experience, I didn't know what I was doing. I ran around the country with her building out this database. And what I learned from that experience is not only how much I loved information, but how if you go into a place where there's just not enough talent and there's nobody else there, you can kind of make your own way. So when I graduated, the internet was starting to happen. We weren't using email. We were buying things in stores, if you guys remember that. And so I went that direction instead of civil engineering because there was no one there. And I built my business. I built my teams. My teams were people that were global. Gender didn't matter, religion didn't matter. None of that made a difference because we just didn't have enough people in the space. Fast forward to now, I live and work in New Mexico with companies on 5 continents. My team, some of my teammates are in Pakistan, Canada, Australia. They're all over the world, and we work with companies all over the world. And we can't get enough talent. So, and I can hire anybody from anywhere, including the Pueblos, if they can just get that basic set of cloud-based skills that I need. So, thank you for including me because I'm in a different space than a lot of you, but I'm very focused on what you're doing, what you're saying, and what your efforts are. And I just want to call out, there's a couple other people in the room that I work with locally here, which is Jemay, I am Innovate Educate. We're using Core Score at several of my clients to do assessments. Ann Beller is here over there with National Science Foundation. There's Ann. And I'm working with her and creating core competencies for the skills of 220 and beyond, which are absolutely necessary for me to be able to hire people and expand. And Lena German is somewhere here, and we did a cybersecurity session for 10 and 13-year-olds last weekend to inspire them. And these girls, the one quote they said to me, and I'll never forget it, is they said, "You mean we can actually make money and play games?" And I said, "Yeah, and there's a huge shortage. And if you can do that in 5 years, I can hire you." So I'll stop there, but that's what I do. And thank you all.
Drop the mic. I mean, not
sorry.
literally, but,
It's heavy.
but
Don't do that,
metaphorically. That's fascinating. So just as we planned, we moved from the hyper-local to the global across the panel. So that's kind of cool. It's also fascinating that, it seems like one of the things that makes each of you leaders in your fields is that you pay a lot of attention to data. So I think we'll want to go deeper on data as part of the conversation. But I was struck by how so much of it is about making these seamless transitions between systems. So much of the work each of you focuses on. So I'll bring it all the way back to Kevin and go back to the hyper-local. When you hear about a best-in-class, tech-enabled platform that bridges the workforce development system and the post-secondary system in place, the first question is like, why don't they already know each other? Why do they have to be introduced to each other? Perhaps your answer is we got that, but I'd just like to know more about how a WIOA leader is leveraging the other systems and creating more of that seamlessness and blurriness between the systems.
Yeah, I don't know if I consider myself a WIOA leader.
Sorry.
Yeah, no, that's okay.
Disparaging that?
No,
That's
not
good.
at all, not at all. I think part of what we've seen locally is, and actually there was a really good series in the New York Times, I think this week in the education section around this general sort of reckoning in post-secondary education right now that's coming, and it's around how do you provide just-in-time training. And we have this conversation locally all the time with our community colleges, our state-level universities, and we're seeing more, and this is part of what the series highlighted, I suggest you read it, about higher ed institutions, traditionally four-year institutions, getting more into this short-term certificate training development. And so for us, that's great. I mean, one of our major customers in the workforce system is our employer partners. And so when we look to make an investment, the first question we're going to ask is, well, what companies are going to hire based on what you just trained on? And the product you're providing has got to match up with local hiring needs. And we're looking more and more for those hyper-local stamps of approval. And part of it is also we're taking advantage of the fact of the way that the labor market is right now. We have a lot more, and our major employer customers are usually small to medium-sized businesses under 500 employees, right? We have some larger institutions in our neck of the woods. You might have heard of them, Intel, Nike, et cetera. They largely don't tap into the public workforce system for source of talent on occasion. So we're looking at solutions that are going to match up, and that's why I'm intrigued. I mean, for a new system to embed more technology at a more affordable price point that provides greater equitable access, I'm glad you brought that up as well. I hope we dive into that a little bit.
Yeah.
I think that's exciting for us in fact, figuring out how do you match that with very small local employers that are going to say, I need these specific skills. Again, something we were just chatting about earlier. But I also need soft skill development. So I think it's an exciting time for that. And because of the rapid change of the pace of technology change, I think that there's many of us in this room, and some of my peers are also in the room that, and some you heard, Peter, who you heard from yesterday around, ISAs. I mean, there's a lot of innovation in this space right now, especially in the workforce boards. So that's why I said I'm not like a WIOA leader, because the other piece I just want to mention too is there's a big push amongst very forward-thinking boards, and again, my other colleague Mark Mackey's here from Spokane. We've been pushing for years to look at diversifying how we make those investments, recognizing that we can leverage access to federal capital, but there's a lot of capital sitting on the private side right now that we'd like to see come to play in our space too. So it's becoming less about WIOA and more about what's the real on-the-ground needs we're able to solve.
Great, and let's pick up on, thanks for bringing equity back into the conversation. When you run a network that is leveraging, it's at scale, which all of us aspire to have impact at scale, even if it's at scale in place in our work. But how do we think about folks who have less access to the quality education that might get them to your platforms, that might get them connected to the work? Just if you guys would pick up on the equity theme and thread, in particular racial and gender equity, and how you all think about that in your business models, I'd appreciate staying on this. Can we work our way around?
Yeah, happy to. I think that's a critical area. We're in, I'm located in Charleston, South Carolina, and arguably, if you look at rankings, I don't know, every once in a while Mississippi beats us for the worst education system in the country. However, if you look at it, it's full employment in the state as well. And so I think when we look into those areas, it's a very diverse population. And the way that we need to be able to get into it, if you look at some of those areas where, right, they don't maybe have the best educators, they maybe don't have access to, a lot of the great things I've seen at this conference, people that have different technologies, certifications, training programs, all of that, we need to get those more into their hands that aren't now. But I think a big part of it is also to helping them to identify that they do have opportunity, because a lot of what they know because of a teacher, a parent, or somebody in their community. And they don't know, like Shelly was talking about, all the opportunities around the world, whether it's playing games, whatever it is. And so, Steve, one of the big aspects we try and do is, they really don't know what they don't know. And so we need to be able to, and kind of the approach that we took at it is, if you look at the equity gap, the different areas like that, there's one area where it's not that separated. And, it really comes into, what is it? 95% of people have access to their mobile devices, a smartphone of some sort, maybe not desktop. So how do we access them where they're at and understand the skills and abilities that they have? That, by the way, may not be their GPA, might not be a certificate, but they have some of the soft skills we talked about, essential skills, critical skills, whatever that might be. They might be part of organizations. And so, we just need to realize that the first step in that we take is, how do you show what they have? And then how do you use data, kind of to your second point, Steve, to micro-target those students and say, hey, we see you want to be a musician, but did you know there's a high correlation between musicians and developers? And then they're like, wait, what? I have a chance. And so that's, I think, one of the biggest things is just to get them engaged earlier and then let them know they have a chance, especially in the underserved communities.
Yeah, so, no, that's interesting. And I think my response is similar, but in in the light of like what we do specifically, and that is, we reach a diverse group of people in all of the communities that we serve, because of our demand generation capabilities, our platforms, things like that come to life because we're leveraging relationships locally with community colleges, with four-year schools, with employers, with workforce boards. And the combination of relationships, bringing them together, which is what we do, it creates buzz. It creates a real presence because they all have a presence there. It's not just one organization or one company with a really good marketing campaign. Like, that's great, but that's not really how we solve this problem, as I think everyone knows. And yes, we have our challenges. How do we educate people on the education options that are available to them? How do we help them in the early stages of the process with selecting the right program? Because the more work we do on the front end of it, the less work we have to do throughout the entire thing, if we just set them up for success right away. And it's when you do it at scale, you get to see the benefit, or the burden, however you look at it, of seeing the way that it works in virtually every community across the country. And there are some that are truly innovative, right? Mm-hmm. There are some where they've got the right leadership, the right funding. Always, more is always better, but at least enough to make a big impact. They've got employer partnerships, and they've got, they're innovating. Mm-hmm. But then you have a lot that are, not understanding the application of the policies. They struggle with governance. They struggle with funding, with staffing, with enforcing accountability, right? And I'm not the expert. We have to get Ron up here, Ron Painter, have him come up and talk about all the policy stuff. I'm not the expert, but I see it on both sides, and I see the struggle that the workforce boards have in working with people in the community. I see the struggle that the people within the community, like the employers and the academic institutions, the struggle they have working under the complexities and the policies and things like that with the workforce boards. And so we sit in the middle and we try to make it all connect, and we try to make it simple and as easy as possible to the best of our ability to make all those things work simultaneously. And then we take the information that we get with outcomes and placement and things like that, and we aggregate it, and then we identify who does it the best, who are the outliers, and why are they outliers? What are their policies? What are the things that they're doing differently? And then we take that information, and then we start to push that through the channel. And we start to educate people on best practices. And we don't get into specifics, and yeah, we do webinars that are gated for our partner base and things like that to educate them on what other people are doing and doing really well. But we have the luxury of taking this information across the country, even across the world, bringing it together and saying, hey, we have some recommendations based on what other people are doing. Let's see if we can take your outcomes from here to here.
That's great. So data for continuous improvement across the network you've got.
That everybody benefits from.
And let's go back to everybody benefits, because this is part of the equity question. So let's use Santa Fe. If I am, Santa Fe has one community college, Santa Fe Community College, and I'm a low-income kid from a fairly decent but not great K-12 system, and I'm about to go try to figure out what I want to be in my life. And let's pretend they're a client of yours, and if they are, apologies.
They are.
Okay. So take me through a kid who is, let's just say they're first generation, young person, immigrant, who wants to get to a credential that has labor market value. What's their experience with how you guys engage and how the systems align? Is that a fair question, or is it too fuzzy?
It is. I mean, I could very easily take off without a place to land on this one, because there's a lot of nuances, right?
Yeah.
But essentially, one, we serve everyone that needs help, or that needs to take advantage of what we can do for them. So we provide things to all diverse, all backgrounds, if you will, right? And then various countries in the whole world, right? So with Santa Fe, if you're somebody that's local, like you just mentioned in that scenario, you would find either you would be searching for a program, you would be talking to people at a workforce board, you'd be walking in kind of heart in hand saying, hey, I need your help. Mm-hmm. Where do I start? Right? I think that's a very common situation. You may be engaged directly with a school because you just know that that's a university or that's a school. In some cases, maybe that's a little intimidating because you're just kind of far away from that. And so most likely you will either go online and you will find us because we will show up locally. You will walk in one of their doors, or you will call one of them directly, and through one of those various relationships, or even the employer. Maybe you're employed and somebody has benefits, and as part of that, they offer training. Mm-hmm. So those are the various ways that someone would find us.
Okay, that's really helpful. Thank you. I might have been the only one in the room who didn't completely get it, so apologies if that question wasn't applicable for the rest of y'all. So, and then now where you've got you can make a living gaming. Holy cow. I worry about that sometimes because it sort of sometimes lets a young person off the hook. Like, wow, I'm really good at gaming. I think that'll be my profession. So I know that was a small piece of what you were sharing. But talk a little bit about what you look for when you're hiring that skill set. I love that you brought equity into it. You said if you live on a pueblo, we will hire you if you have these skills. How do you identify them? How do you go to other platforms for understanding the skill set? Just talk us a little bit through your own play in the work.
Sure. My experience is that if we call it an MVP in my organization, and that's where we will assemble a team to go in and take a look at something, and we will look for the minimal project that we can put in place to prove something out. We can then take that and try it out at other places and hopefully readapt it. For me, when I say that, my work is enjoyable. Most of the people I work with, we love our work. We actually like working with our clients. We hired a team out of Pakistan. They do work for us. We pay them a living wage, and by Pakistani terms, it's better than anything else they could get, and they really enjoy working with us. So I could do the same thing here. I just need them to have that basic skill set, and then I could do it here with a pueblo, with anybody. In California, my clients, we've applied for ETP funding so we could get training in place for them. I do continuous improvement, and so I have to, kind of like our funding this morning, they were talking about VCs, I have to give a return on investment, but it's not that hard if people can get the basic skill sets that we need. And our teams are cloud-based, and so anybody, anywhere can be part of one of my teams, and we can work with a client anywhere as well. I am the one that organizes and makes sure it runs, as well as my business partner, but the people that we hire just need a minimum set, and a lot of you are talking about that and getting certifications and badges and things like that. That's where we would look.
Can I jump in on this one too, Steve?
Yeah, please jump in, Kev.
I will take a liberty, since you had a controversial question at the beginning, maybe I'll issue a controversial statement. Two things I would say, and I love that we did the LinkedIn experiment, and it came up earlier. Relationships and on-the-job, real-world work experience. Those are probably two of the most valuable things you can have as a young adult coming out of high school. Guess what eroded after the last downturn? Internships. Paid high school age internships are nearly gone. Access to real networks, social capital, is almost evaporated for many of these communities. I think this is the frontier of workforce development. If we can find ways to invest in creating meaningful social capital, that'll go a long way. And I don't want that to come across as credentials and degrees and those sorts of things don't mean anything. But I bet if I asked everybody in this room to raise their hand if they got their current job because they knew somebody or somebody knew them, I'd bet, I don't know, let's do it. 95% of you? Those of you, yeah?
It looks like it's actually 83%.
83%, sorry. My math was a little, I didn't get a certification in math. That is so critically important, and it often doesn't come up around these conversations, and it goes directly at the heart of equitable access, right? So I would encourage all of you, and I'd actually challenge everyone in this room, the next time you're in a room, you're at a community college, you come to one of our one-stops, do the same LinkedIn experiment. Connect on LinkedIn with everybody inside that one-stop. Connect on LinkedIn when you go to the school the next time, and offer to provide access for those young adults, or adults too, that you might come across. I think that would go a long way in creating more equitable access.
Terrific. This conversation has flown for me. So closing, what's a better system look like to y'all? And feel free to weigh in. You don't have to have a comprehensive answer, but what's one or two nuggets that you would want to leave folks with so they can go make the systems they work in better? Any quick jump in?
Yeah,
Popcorn.
I'll go. Dangerous going first, but I would say I think a system that doesn't fear the consequences of making bold decisions and doesn't doesn't fear going into something knowing that there may not be an answer yet, because maybe we're trailblazing, and we have to feel a certain comfort in that chaos. And I would say that we have to see the good in all the people that we're trying to work with and all the players in the space, and give everyone an opportunity to really showcase what they do best, and be open to partnership, and be open to finding innovative ways to not just reach people, but to connect them with, people within the communities. And I'm speaking broadly because I'm covering all the bases, but basically for us, that's, opening the doors and saying, yeah, like, let's work together and let's make this less complicated, since it doesn't necessarily need to be. And let's not be afraid of a policy or something else. I mean, I'm not bypassing them. I'm just saying, let's not let that fear drive every decision we make, and instead take the same approach and being more proactive and saying, hey, let's take a more proactive approach into solving these problems that we know exist versus sitting back and saying, it's just too difficult, there's too many restrictions, we can't do it.
I'd like to go, and I'll be quick. I work in the cloud. My business is in the cloud. Everything is cloud-based. We made the switch about 7 years ago. We are pioneers, and we are big believers in it. Everybody in this room was so amazing. I just wrote down Charles Ashley from Cultivating Coders yesterday. He said he changed their system every 3 months. I would really recommend people here thinking about using the cloud to get together in interactive teams where you are pooling each other's strengths together and you're going in and going for that minimum viable product, which is what we do. We prove it out and try it somewhere else. Because, I mean, just this panel here, if you pool these people, if you all got together and in 3 months you were willing to change your program, and which Charles does, you could really make an impact just by networking in this room alone and forming those so that from wherever people are, you can go wherever you can go, make that difference, and then keep going.
Fantastic.
Guess I'll go next.
Yeah.
I think as we look at this, and Shelly kind of hit on it, is if we want a different outcome from the workforce standpoint, we got to do something different. And so often we work with companies and they do the same thing. They do the same thing for their recruitment and the way that they're going to do it, and they expect a different outcome for some reason. Like changing the billboard is really going to make a difference. It's not. Going at it different ways, trying it. To Kevin's point, taking on the internships, taking the risk. These kids, we're talking, a lot of these jobs we talked about were around technology. I'm pretty sure a lot of them know a lot more than us about how to do that, especially when you look at Generation Z, right? They grew up. They were not, they were the first generation where it was native from them from the very beginning. And so how do we find ways to tie them in? I think how do we find ways to get them a part of the conversation and bring it all back together within one, that we can really get a place where we can align people's passions, interests, and skills to a job. If we do that, the biggest factor is not going to be how do we get people in the door. It's going to act, I think one of the conversations that was talked about in some of the session is it's going to help with retention. Because if you're happy what you do and you align and can live the lifestyle you want to live in the location you want to be, that's a pretty happy worker. Happy worker makes a prosperous economy and pulling everybody together.
Right on. So, Kevin, I saw you shaking your head a lot, so yours is going to be ditto, because we're out of time.
That's right.
But unless you can do it in a tweet. Can you do it in a tweet?
Yeah. I can say
do it in a tweet.
Be fearless, walk the walk, and lead the way. Next time you're at a chamber meeting, you're at an economic development meeting, stand up and say, I'm taking on 3 kids this year because I believe in it. I would say that would go a long way for me.
Awesome. I was going to summarize how collectively all of these comments actually, do build a better system when you put it all in place. It's like when you have a bite of amazing pozole mixed with green chili on top of the perfect enchilada. That's a better system. So please join me in thanking Kevin, Casey, Cory, and Shelly for this contribution.
Guys, thank you, everybody.
Thank you all.
Please welcome the Human Resources Director for the Los Alamos National Labs, Laurie Monfiletto.
Hi, everyone. How are you doing? Woo! How many of you knew about Los Alamos National Labs before you came here today? Oh, More than I thought. That's awesome. So we want to talk to you today about what we're doing locally about bridging the demand in our community for people and having jobs versus our need for people to come and work for us. So we'll start right here. We want to talk about a few things. One about equity and access, also about innovation, and what are the things we're doing to help with that. So Los Alamos National Labs, it's big in northern New Mexico. We have about 3.1 billion a year that we pump into the organization. How many employees we have? We have 9,000 regular full-time employees. 9,000 in little Los Alamos, New Mexico. Altogether, though, with consultants and with subcontractors and that type of thing, we have 12,000 that work on our site. So we are the little engine that could in northern New Mexico. We are managing, Triad is a new managing operator for Los Alamos. So we have 3 partners. Battella's the largest partner, and we're working a lot. You see a picture? See that picture? That's our lab director, Tom Mason. Tom has gone to talk to many community leaders to find out what their needs are and also to talk about what our needs are. And as you can see, we're partnering with local stakeholders also. Because of the push and needing to find out about what the community needed, we also have developed a new office, the Office of Partnerships and Pipeline Development, in order to help us better navigate and bring in people who want to work with us. And also our Community Partnership Office. And they're at the table in the back. Wave your hands. Yes, thank you, because they make it happen. This is something we're really proud of, and that's the Regional Partnership High School. We established a 5-year agreement with Powahki Valley High School, which is between here and Los Alamos, and New Mexico Highlands University. Because what we have found is that students do better when their teachers are engaged, they know what's going on, they know what's going on in the real world. And so we're doing part of that partnership. As you can see, we have 80 Powahki students. They come to a summer math camp for us, and that's designed. And you know, we work with our partners to understand that what they need in that math camp is what is needed. We also have lab professional staff as well as Highlands staff working with teachers. And I can tell you in past lives that I've had, teachers are very interested in what the students will do in the real world because they want their curriculum to fit in that way. And that's what we're working with Powahki Valley. Another thing that I want you to know is our Los Alamos employees donate to a scholarship fund. Our Los Alamos employees donate to a scholarship fund, and last year we gave out $860,000 to 166 students. So it's not just the lab itself, but it's our employees. We have skin in the game. We want to be able to make this lab the best and bring in the best and the brightest in the local community as well as the other communities. Now, you know, I talked about how big we are. 75% of our jobs, a lot of people are like, oh, you have to have a PhD to work in Los Alamos. You don't. 75% of our jobs are not PhDs or scientists. It's day-to-day kinds of things, computers, ITs, engineers, HR professionals, finance professionals, things of that sort. And so that's what we're working on to help in that way. We are involved to collaborate on innovation. We do have the Richard Feynman Center for Innovation. As you can see, it's an engagement between research, corporate, and entrepreneur communities. We think it's very important to be involved with our communities and with those communities because as they're learning things, we will learn things from them. We also are a member of the New Mexico Consortium, which is a nonprofit corporation formed by 3 New Mexico universities in order to help with research in the state of New Mexico. So we're part of that. We also want to invest to expand innovation and provide a service to our communities. What I told you about was employees. What I also want to tell you about is we have a lot of companies that provide services for us. These numbers are impressive. As you can see, the lab efforts have had a lot of help with these communities in revenue growth, in financing, in salaries. So not only are we doing things with the lab and with our employees in the lab, but we're doing it with the surrounding communities. And we think that's very important to be a good community partner. But we also have a demand for diverse local talent. I am the head of HR, so I gotta do that plug. We need talent. And these are many of the jobs that we're looking at. I know some of them, you're like, what is a radiation control technician? What is a safety basis and criticality safety engineer? Those are jobs that we can develop people in with the right background, skills, and training. They could take on those jobs. And those jobs are very well paid, and they serve the mission of Los Alamos, which is ensuring that our world is safe. We look for local talent to meet the demand. And local talent, as you can see, we've gone to many of these organizations to do recruiting. I'm not going to list them all, but many organizations within New Mexico. We believe strongly that if we hire in New Mexico, they stay. I know you're sitting there going, why wouldn't anyone stay in the blue sky, lovely New Mexico? We don't know, but we do know that people who live here will stay here longer, and that's why we want to recruit for as many local talent as we can. We also help with our application. It is a tedious process, and I will say in the 6 months I've been here, that's an area that we're working on to make it so it's easier to apply for positions in Los Alamos. I think if you can see the statistics, is that 41% are native New Mexicans. So we want to keep that going. The student pipelines are crucial for developing our workforce. And we've been working on a number of areas for pipelines, but what we want to focus on, and you can see, I think one of the impressive things is the percentage of LANL employees who are former students. I know in my staff, I have, of the 10 managers that I have, 8 of them were former students at the lab. So that's something awesome that they grow up with the lab. But I want to get a little further into the RCT, that radiation control technician position. We want to start a pipeline, and one way to bridge that community and demand is forming a partnership with Northern New Mexico College to provide a radiation control program. We started that program this fall. Our classes are full. We're very excited about that because as we develop them, then they'll be ready to take on really well-paying jobs. We will have 40 students a year, and like I said, that started in the last few weeks. And then we also believe that program will help others. It will help us, and we want it to help us more, but we do think that will help us with N3B, with Sandia, others who will benefit from the radiation control technician program. One thing that we're very proud of is bridging the gap when we look at diversity. One of the areas that we've really focused on is veterans. We think that veterans have great skills, a real work ethic, and they believe in mission. And our mission is keeping America safe. And that mission brings them to us. In the last year, we've gone from 6% of our populations as veterans to 10% of our population as veterans. That's important because we believe that that's a great pipeline for us, and a lot of veterans do retire here in New Mexico, so it makes a perfect fit for us. We're also rethinking our image. Why I talked about why 75% of the jobs are not PhD jobs and scientists is that people have dismissed Los Alamos to say, I don't think I have the skills and the abilities to do that. They do, and our employees do. And we want our future potential employees to think of us as a real opportunity for them. So here's some of the things that we're doing to market. We're looking at, well, first of all, looking at why we want to hire folks. We're also looking at northern New Mexico, how we're helping embrace that through the pipelines, through the pipeline office, that type of thing, and really thinking about how we engage Laylah employees in helping us with this venture too. We are also increasing our transparency. We want people to understand what the work is about, why we're doing the work that we're doing, and the skills that we need. Once again, the skills that we need are skills that every organization needs, but we're helping with our educational and our teacher profession program, helping them understand what the things that they could teach that would really help our students become our future employees. We also are having a lot of application success sessions. That application success is learning how to do the application for Los Alamos National Labs so you can get your foot in the door and we can find out your interests and how that fits with us. And we also leverage employee resource groups. Employee resource groups are groups of affinity groups, groups that are like-minded, who have common goals and who will help us in recruiting people who have common goals, such as our Atomic Women's Group, such as our African American group, our Hispanic employee group, our LGBTQ group, because we believe that diversity will make this lab even better, and we continue to strive on that diversity. That was it. Thank you so much for coming today and letting me talk for a few minutes about what Los Alamos is doing. That's my email. Would love to hear from you if you have any questions or any partnerships. We would love that also. Thank you very much.
Please welcome the Samueli Foundation's Executive Director, leading philanthropic efforts in STEM education, youth, integrative health, and Jewish leadership, Gerald Sullivan.
Good afternoon, everyone. As you can see, I'm an N of one. There was another person, Laylah Bulman, who was supposed to be here. Unfortunately, she had an emergency and had to fly back to Miami. So let me preface my conversation by saying the following. One, when I'm done, you're either going to think I'm absolutely nuts, or you're going to go, wow, this is some of the coolest thing I've ever seen. And I'll share a statistic with you. More people watch 5 people play 5 people on a computer than the World Series, the NBA Finals, and the Super Bowl combined. That's called League of Legends, and that's called esports. And what we've done, and for over a decade, we've invested in engineering schools and STEM education and the like, and we've realized we still haven't reached the people that we really need to be able to reach. So we heard those statistics and we said, well, let's try something. Let's look at the concept of creating something around STEM with esports, something truly innovative and disruptive in the educational system. So who are we? We are something called the North American Scholastic Esports Federation. It's a group of educators, and you can see by the slide that the board is made up of chancellors of schools, deans of schools of education, presidents of universities, who provide for us the guidance on what it is to connect STEM learning and education with game playing and esports. Think about it this way: play, passion, and purpose in life. And that's what the purpose of all this is. Our foundation has funded this 100%, and the work that you will see here is free to any high school and any middle school in the country. So we are truly a disruptive, immersive learning system. And you'll see by what we've done is we hired 14 teachers over a period of about 8 months to literally write curriculum that ties CTE, ISTE, Common Core, CASEL standards and the like into a framework around gaming. So think about it this way. Certain number of people play professional sport. They're surrounded by an array, hundreds, sometimes thousands of people. Those are all the jobs that the curriculum talks about. So now what we have is we have a full 4-year A to G, state of California approved high school curriculum. We have all 15 CTE tracks approved, and we have middle school curriculum in front of the Department of Education for approval in California. Truly unique, truly disruptive, and how can you get kids who are disengaged to come back into the learning system and to learn? You can see what the curriculum looks like. We've laid it out a little bit into 4 years. It's non-stackable, so you could take pieces or parts, or you could do a whole year. And I'm gonna share with you some videos to show exactly what it looks like. This is what the CTE track looks like. You can actually go into 8th grade, and you can take the classes, matriculate all the way through high school, and be certified, credentialed, and be capable of applying to and getting into any UC or Cal State system in accordance with their A to G requirements. So let me show you what it looks like in a high school.
Esports has to do with a lot of bringing people together through not just competition, but that soul core of just shared passion.
I'm a huge proponent of gaming, especially as a way to reach kids in education, and so when I heard that UC Irvine, in collaboration with Orange County Department of Education, in collaboration with the Samueli Foundation, are having this big esports push a year or two ago, it was a no-brainer for me and for our school here, because I know, these kids, they're all about gaming, they love it, and it really is a way that we can meet them where they are.
I don't play games fairly often, but when I do, I'm entertained. And the reason I joined the esports class was because of the entrepreneurship also. And it's very different from just a regular class. It gives you an open-mindedness about new things that are happening in the industry and the world.
Here at Samueli Academy, there's 9th through 11th grade, where each year has a different specification for esports. So 9th grade with game design, 10th grade with entrepreneurship, and 11th grade marketing. And each class is dedicated to helping teach those kids those specific parts of esports along with English.
The English classes really is about meeting kids where they are.
Oh, my class subject is esports English. This is a new experience. For a lot of people, they're not very interested in English, and I think this is a fun way to learn about English, and at the same time, learn about something that you might have taken interest of and that you didn't know about, and I think that's very cool too.
Gaming is beyond what close-minded people think. There's a lot of writing, and there's a lot of literature in gaming.
It's a very good way to get students entertained in what you want to teach them. Right here, they're giving us an opportunity to do what we like to do.
So some examples of what we've done in our esports class is that we had to make our own video game, and it was a storyline that happened to us. And for example, mine was getting lost in New York, and we made a video game about that. I'm actually very shy, and I don't collaborate a lot with people and socialize. But this time, it made us all collaborate with each other, and it made us think together and try to be a team. And the same things that they liked, I liked, which is even crazier. And it actually made me want to work and want to finish our storyline.
Our mission here is to serve a diverse population, and some of that diversity includes kids who are well behind academically and motivationally. And we develop these esports classes around the idea of meeting kids where they are. Where when I was in school, I was never taught to collaborate. I was never taught to communicate or think critically, but through the lens of esports and STEM, these kids are gaining those soft skills. It gives them a reason to buy in. But if you can put them in a healthy situation and structure some curriculum around it, and watch the teamwork, watch the collaboration, watch the skills start to develop within that young man or young woman, they're gonna go, wow. Watch it transform when they get into the world of video games.
It's always good when you get to see an example of what it looks like. Everything we do is evidence-based. We hired a group of researchers. They got IRB approval. We literally gave them $1 million for a 3-year IRB evaluation of the nexus between our curriculum and the esports program that we do. Let me go ahead and share with you the video from the lead evaluator.
My name is Constance Steinkuhler. I'm a full professor here in informatics and I study games. My expertise is on social interaction and cognition. My game of choice tends to be player versus player, kind of online games. I'm really interested in all of the social interaction and social sort of collaboration and competition that happens in games and then around the games. And we have a lot of different faculty here who are actually working on game-related topics. The connection between esports and STEM, between esports and academics generally. Gaming is a very cerebral and smart kind of activity. In their game spaces, they're doing like really high-end theory crafting, they're doing data science. It's a ton of delayed gratification. If you're gonna get good at any of the games, it takes a lot of work, it takes hours of discipline, of play. And so the idea that they're kind of barren intellectually is sort of a foolish idea the moment you pick up a title. It takes screen time and it turns it into activity time. In today's kind of climate, we really underestimate how important it is just to play and to do things because they're interesting and fun. It's actually an important part of development.
I know you're saying gaming, esports. I mean, that is so weird. How can you connect those two and have learning around it? Well, fortunately, that's what we've done, and I'll share some data with you. The research has been phenomenal as the work that's accomplished after 1 year. There's a clear nexus between math skills, competencies, attributes, science skills, competencies, attributes, and social emotional learning. And part of what we've done is funded for this year a double-blind control study of 300 people in the program and 300 people out of the program. And it's a full IRB study, so when you look at data, you know that data is true to form, and it's not anything that's being manipulated by the people who are doing the program and what the program is. So imagine for a minute that I am she. Unfortunately, she's not here. This is what she would be saying. She would talk about how it works. And you set it up like a club, just like a key club or any other kind of club. And in that club, you go to where the kids are. You find out what they like to do, what they like to play, what they like to engage in. And then when you set this up, and everything we do is virtual, you get an array of toolkits, curriculum, business plans, logo development work, everything you can think of, and then they build out their business plan. They determine who the officers are. They literally become entrepreneurs. They become innovators, and then you layer into that the curriculum that we talk about. It's about curriculum, clubs, competition, obviously, because that's the Trojan horse. That's what brings them in, coaching, and then career trajectory. So if I like gaming, but I'm not gonna be a competitive gamer, maybe I'm gonna go into a Fandom Martin logo design, or business planning, or event planning, or web development, or comp sci work, or event services, or whatever it may be. That's the curriculum that you take that then joins your play with opportunity for career development. We don't give out any prizes. All we do is give out scholarships. We give out scholarships not only for the gaming, but we give out scholarships for nationally logo development and design, web development, shoutcasting, business plan development, marketing materials, because if we're gonna be true to the learning and the educational piece, one, it's gotta be scholarship, and two, you've got to deal with the entire ecosystem that we talk about around gaming. We also have done something else that's very unique in this world. We have created the first cohort of Scholastic Esports Fellows. We have 13 middle school teachers and 12 high school teachers from around the United States who we have brought in as an inaugural class of Scholastic Esports Curriculum Fellows. These are teachers in schools all over the United States who will spend a year learning about how to take STEM education, characteristics, attributes, competencies, pedagogy, et cetera, and infuse esports into the learning. And our commitment is over 3 years. We'll have 75 to 100 Scholastic Fellow educators in esports who will be able to do this around the United States. Is it working? So let me share some data that's pretty fascinating. So the person, Laylah Bulman, who you saw the picture of, started this work on behalf of Lego and herself in Florida, only on September 5. These are the school districts now that are involved. They have over 500 kids who are involved, and if you know Miami-Dade, the 4th largest school district in the United States, Alberto Cavallo, who's the superintendent, said in a podcast last week that he will put this curriculum in all 454 schools in Miami-Dade County. He said it's the next best thing to robotics, and the best part of it, there's curriculum that's licensed and credentialed, and it's free to every school and every student, because that's the philanthropy that we bring to the table. The other piece that's of interest here is what it looks like nationally. We beta tested this a year ago. So in 11 months, we went from 28 schools and 36 teams to now we're in 42 states. We have over 5,000 kids and now over 600 high schools and now going into middle school who are participating. Why? Because this is where kids are. Kids are not what we were when we were children, or at least not me. They like online gaming. They'd rather text than pick up a phone and talk to someone. They'd rather text than meet face-to-face with people. They would rather go in their room and put their headphones on and play games with people from Russia and Germany and South America and wherever it may be. How do you take that and channel it in a more productive way? You do it by setting up these opportunities for kids to connect their passion and play with real career development and purpose. And when you wrap it around a school setting, and there's curriculum there, and you have to have a certain grade point average, have to have a certain level of attendance, no disciplinary problems, et cetera, you then get yourself into a position to where you now are bringing the student back into the learning environment, and he or she, for the first time, is seeing value and a connection between learning and workforce and working and life and education. And that's hard for a lot of these kids today, especially for those that have been left out, disenfranchised, or unengaged in the education and learning program. So here's what I'm gonna leave you with. If you're interested, go to our website, esportsfed.org, or just simply Google NASEF. And I'll leave you with one last little video, because it's always good to hear from a parent and how parents think. And it'll give you a sense of what family is all about and the family connection to what this is.
When Connor came home and said he wanted to be in the esports club, I almost fell over because I just couldn't believe it. I had been asking him for so long to get involved in the school. He signed up for some clubs and didn't follow through. I think one of his friends suggested that he join the team, and he said, I want to start, I want to be on this team.
Being a gamer myself, it does teach you a lot of skills. It does, I believe, enhance cognitive skills. But most importantly, I see a huge difference in just his overall behavior. His grades have improved significantly over last year. Been drafted to be the captain of his team. It's put him into a leadership position, and it's required him to step up. He'll tell me about, one of his games, and I would ask him, well, what are you going to do about it differently next time? How are you going to motivate them to do something different? So it's a good challenge for him, and it's a good learning experience for him.
So my interest in gaming started when I was bored at home and I wanted to play with a friend. And gaming just was a way for him to play at his house and me to play at my house and not have to really go anywhere to have social interactions with each other.
I think one of the benefits of playing these games globally is that, my kid is exposed to something that they would never be exposed to normally. Like, he's got a friend in Russia that he's playing games with all the time. And he's talking about how funny this guy is, and, they're exchanging things about different languages and things. And these are things that he would never be exposed to if he was on a soccer team, for example.
I'd say the most memorable times you have is when you first start playing a game and you meet those friends that kind of teach you how to play when you don't know how to play.
I would encourage other parents to, ask their kids what they're doing and why, what they're excited about at school. And, if it's gaming, if they're interested in gaming, try something different and just try supporting what they're interested in, because sometimes the unexpected might happen. Just embracing gaming and esports on the campus, getting involved with friends, developing leadership skills, all of those things are just so important, and I wish that other parents would pay attention and get involved, because it's just, I feel like it's a wave, and we're right at the crest of the wave.
So you've seen it operate in a school. You've seen the research and the IRB study data, and you can look at this later on. You've seen how parents look at it. Is it disruptive? You bet. Is it innovative? Absolutely. It's part of the theme of what Innovate to Educate's about. I can say, with no disrespect, you can either ignore it and it will happen without you, or you can get on board and see what the future is for our kids and the next generation after that. Go where they are, figure out how to communicate the way they communicate, and then wrap around the things that we all value and what our moral compass is, and instill it in a way that these kids can appreciate and understand it. Thank you for your time.
Please welcome the Deputy Executive Officer, San Bernardino County Economic Development, Reg Javier.
Thanks. I just have to admit that my greatest challenge over the last couple of weeks was trying to figure out how to cram all my talking points into 10 minutes. But anyway, how many of you guys know where San Bernardino County is? Oh, wow, a lot of you. Wow, okay, for those of you who don't know where San Bernardino County is, it's in Southern California, inland Southern California. We're the largest geographic county in the country, 2.1 million residents, and 20,000 square miles, and a labor force of about 950,000 people. But we also border, we're also the eastern border of LA and Orange counties, and we share a region called the Inland Empire of Southern California with Riverside County. I'm not going to get into the history of the region, but I do want to call out a few things that we've been challenged with and we've been haggling with addressing over a number of years now. We have large pockets of poverty in our region, high rates of dropouts in our region, and also that's resulted in low educational attainment and lower average wages across our economy in comparison to our neighboring regions. But that's all changing. Shift happens. I did say shift, by the way. I enunciated that F. We're seeing trends in economic development that are actually real critical to the transformation of our region. So let me talk about a few of those trends. First off, the Inland Empire is one of the fastest growing regions in the entire country. We continue to add jobs and people year over year. As a matter of fact, over the course of the next 8 to 10 years, we're going to add 1.2 million people in the Inland Empire, which is like adding the entire city of New Orleans to the Inland Empire. We're seeing this inward migration into the county that's changing our demographics, and it's beginning to change our labor force as well. We're beginning to really pay attention to that. The inward migration into the region is actually due, in large part, due to millennials coming of age and starting families, wanting to start families, wanting to buy real estate or housing, and looking for a more affordable area. They're moving out of the urban nodes. So they're starting to move into San Bernardino County, which is literally the suburb of LA and Orange, as I said. So our labor force is actually getting younger. We are already one of the youngest regions in the country. We're younger than the national average and the state of California average. But a little bit about our economy. Our economy is, our largest industry sector by far is distribution, warehouse, and logistics. And it's by a long shot that it is our largest industry sector. As a matter of fact, 10% of all warehouses in the United States sit in the Inland Empire. That's how massive the industry sector is. But that's also a reason why we're evolving as an economy. We also have other industry sectors like healthcare, manufacturing, retail, all the traditional industry sectors that you see in other regions. But we're paying attention to what dynamics are happening to our industry sectors that suggest that our economy is going to shift and change over the coming years. So a little bit about economic development. Economic development is really measured on business attraction, retention, expansion, and creation, quite frankly. But the core metric around economic development at large is really about how you attract businesses to the local region. So I've gotten the opportunity to talk to a lot of different corporate site selectors. These are corporate executives that actually decide where they locate facilities everywhere in the world. And I sat at tables with them and I asked them this question. I said, What are the key factors that cause you to make a decision to locate a facility, whether it be a headquarters or an operational facility, anywhere in the world? In other words, what's the distinction between location A versus location B? And the number one and number two reason for locating a facility anywhere in the world? The availability of the labor force and the quality of that labor force. But here's the thing. That's a point-in-time data metric. Site selectors, corporate site selectors, are beginning to have dialogue similar to what we're having here about the future of work, the future of their work. How is it changing? How is corporate site selection beginning to change and evolve over time? They now are looking at that metric. It's not a dashboard metric that says, okay, that's a place we want to locate a facility. It's really about their ability to succeed as a business in that region. So they're thinking about, we don't want just business success today, but we want it for the long haul. So now they're thinking about the indicators and thinking about, okay, we know that the availability of the labor force and the quality of the labor force is there today. What tells us it's going to be there for the long haul, as we know our business model is going to change? So they're beginning to look at systems that produce talent, not just necessarily what talent is available. So as we as economic developers think about what makes us successful, we think about, okay, we will never be successful in attracting new businesses to our region if we do not have the talent supply chain that is necessary to fuel the growth and success of those businesses that we're trying to attract. So then, if you really, really think about this, the job that we're really trying to tackle is no longer about supplying individual businesses with talent, but rather entire economies with the talent pipelines that's going to drive economic growth. So we began to unpack this a little bit, and I'm going to just sort of fly through this slide because I only have 10 minutes, by the way. We began to unpack, what does this really mean to us? We have to address the skills gap, which is really about meeting the business needs currently. There's a need in the marketplace today, and we don't have the people for it. It creates a gap. We're thinking about, how are we going to mitigate the skills gap? Then we're thinking about right skills. How are we going to produce the right skills that are aligned with our current and future economy? And then we're thinking about future skills. We, as I said before, we're heavy distribution logistics. We know that automations, technologies, robotics, driverless cars, drones, all those things are going to drastically disrupt that industry. It's going to change and evolve. What are the skill sets that are going to be required for us to think about in terms of driving economic growth in the future? So we're thinking about the future skills, and we're creating predictive analytics around our economy that suggests that those future skills are going to be there when they're needed. So here's what our response was. Really, we're like every other region in the United States. We have career pathways like everybody else. But here's the thing, we decided that we needed to think about how our career pathways in our K-12 education system began to fuel economic growth. So we need to think about what's being taught and what career pathways actually are going to be producing in our region that suggests that we're going to drive economic growth. In a nutshell, we began to think about big systems integrating, bringing big systems together. So Generation Go was created, and that's the initiative, and actually it's Generation Go with an exclamation point, and you're supposed to go like this. My team has literally the entire board of supervisors going, Generation Go. But we started with this initiative around Generation Go, and then we started with one of the most distressed school districts, actually our largest school district in the entire county, one of the most distressed school districts in the entire country. This school district, the San Bernardino City Unified School District, was also in a city that was once tagged the most dangerous city in the entire country. As you can imagine, it was also wrought with poverty, homelessness, low skills that also plagued this district. So here's the good news. 7 years ago, The graduation rate in the San Bernardino City Unified School District was 61%. This past year, it was just over 92%, which is phenomenal. So let me tell you a little bit about what Generation Go is, and so you can get a little more context. Generation Go is an integration between economic development, workforce development, K-12, and community colleges. The model, we have career pathways all the way down to the kindergarten level. We have kindergartners being put on computers right now in classrooms, and they're learning SolidWorks software, which is an industry standard for engineering, design firms, and manufacturers. They're learning SolidWorks software, they're designing candle holders and printing them on their 3D printers in their classroom. In 3rd and 4th grade, they're designing and manufacturing candelariums. They're those wood boxes with images etched into the side. You put a candle in it and that image glows. They're learning how to they're learning right angles, how to measure angles and calculate angles, not out of a book, but by building something. There was a school shooting in a nearby school, and the 3rd and 4th graders wanted to benefit the families of the victims of that school shooting, so they started selling these candelariums online. If you logged into that website at the time, there was misspelled words all over the place. And the reason was there was not a single teacher involved in the creation of that website. Now imagine, if you will, for a second, where you would be today if in 3rd or 4th grade you were designing and manufacturing goods and then using e-commerce to sell them. You wouldn't be listening to my 10-minute speech, that's for sure, right? But it gains in sophistication as we go up in grade levels. In the junior year in high school, in our system, 100% of all these students in these career pathways get concurrently enrolled in community college. We have high school students in this really distressed community walking around campus, literally walking around campus with their college ID card and putting them in their friends' faces and going, "Look, I'm a college student." Think about that for a minute. The majority of these kids come from family backgrounds that barely graduated high school, much less even sniffed college. These kids are proudly saying they're college students. We have forevermore changed the perceptions of what they're going to achieve in life and what they're going to be. And that reality is very different than the realities they're being raised in today. I said they are concurrently enrolled in community college. They take what's called a work readiness course at the community college. They are being put on community college campuses so that they can perceive themselves in that way. That work readiness course teaches them all of the soft skills, all of the workplace skills, workplace acumen, all of those things. In their senior year in high school, they take what's called a work experience course. They are a community college student, and they get protected by the community college system in terms of insurances, all of these things. That work experience course, the Workforce Board has promised that 100% of all students that are in those career pathways in that work experience course get some kind of work experience before leaving high school. Students with work experience before they leave high school far outperform their counterparts who don't get that work experience, both academically and in life. It literally changes the trajectory of a young person's life. The accumulation of wealth, whether or not they buy a house, the types of jobs they get, and even the levels they attain in employment changes. So work experience matters. What we've learned in Generation Go is business engagement really matters. You need to engage businesses right from the get-go. They need to be involved in curriculum development. They need to also be involved in what types of career pathways we create, but they also need to be involved in work experience and employment. So some early findings. Data shows that kids coming out of the continuation school, their college going rate is 75% post this program. Prior to the program, the college going rate for kids coming out of our continuation school was nearly 0. Students all across the board, regardless of background, they're achieving higher grades. Their graduation rates are rising. All of those things are happening because of their involvement in this program. So where we're heading, and I have to close, I know, where we're heading is really around this ecosystem that suggests that the workforce development and the economic development systems have created this workforce roadmap. And it is really around business analytics and intelligence that causes us to be more predictive in nature in terms of where our economy is heading and where skills are heading within the context of our economy. That's going to inform K-12, community colleges, universities around the development of career pathways, certificate, credential, and degree programs, all of that, which creates a pipeline, and then that also contributes to regional growth. So did I do it? 10 minutes? Perfect. Thank you very much.
Okay, we're doing a little change of room.
There you go. It's right here, man.
Oh, I'm sorry.
There you go.
Okay, so we're going to do a change of room. Hello. Next time we do closer, we're going to stop at 1 and have Santa Fe tours, and then make sure that we have full house. But thank everybody for being here. We're doing the raffle really quickly. So, Susie, let's do the raffle. Do you want to do it? Because I don't know this stuff that well. Let's Susie right here.
Hi, everybody. So thank you so much for those who supported. Our first gift is going to be the bottle of wine and this little bag and another bag from a donation from PBS. So drum roll. Is there a Tad Wamster? Wamster?
Yeah. Oh, Tad, yeah. Okay.
Todd?
Tad.
Ted?
Tad.
Yeah?
Okay.
Come on up.
I don't know if they aren't here.
Okay. Next gift is going to be this artisanary from Mexico, which is the Last Supper. It's with praying hands, and this sweatshirt of New Mexico, the Zia sign, with also a PBS bag. Jeff. Okay, can you?
Jeff Schrock.
Schrock?
Schrock?
No?
Okay.
Okay. We told them that they didn't have to be present to win, and we have their phone number, so we'll call them if. And then the next prize is going to be a New Mexico mug with also a PBS bag, and that is going to go to Don. No last name, but the phone number is 214 area code, and he had been telling me, did I win? Did I win? Did I win?
That's work ready. Okay.
Did he leave?
That's John with work ready.
Yeah.
We'll get him for him.
Okay.
Work ready.
And then the other New Mexico mug with the painting is going to go to Jake Taylor. Jake Taylor? Nope. Okay, we'll call him. Okay, now the two big ones. The fossil watch is going to go to Lois Johnson. Where is she? Where is Lois?
Oh my God.
Where is Lois?
Yeah, tell her to get in.
Okay, so she got the watch. She really wanted the New Mexico trip.
If somebody wins a New Mexico trip, they can trade the watch with Lois.
All right, now for the New Mexico trip to Santa Fe. Drum roll. All right. Brian. So I know that Brian had said that he would.
Yeah, Brian, he's a board member. He can't win it.
Yes.
Sorry, Brian.
Did he leave? Is he here?
He's gone.
Okay.
Yeah, he can't win it.
Okay.
Tell Brian, John, that I gave it away.
Don, again, he bought like 5 tickets.
What? Okay, Don with work ready.
Yeah.
Okay.
Awesome. Thank you, everybody. Lois, you won
Lois, you won the watch. You always win. It's crazy. Okay, I'm going to call up my panel. Come on up, guys. We have an amazing panel, Workforce and Hiring at the Center of Business. Todd McCracken with the National Small Business Association in DC. Sean Sullivan, Society for Human Resource Management, head of HR, previously director of HR at Tufts Medical Center. Director Pam Coleman, who is the state of New Mexico, director of personnel. And Giovanni Rossi, Collective Action Strategies, I think with 1A, but we put it with 2. Action AAC, I don't think it was.
Yeah,
yeah.
No double A.
And thank you guys. So this panel is really about what's happening within the realm of hiring. And we had a great conversation before, so I'm going to start by just having each person, talk about the specific role they're in and what shifts they're seeing in their role, okay? And introduce yourself too. So Director Coleman.
Thank you for having me, and I'm really honored and pleased to be here, and also to my panelists, my fellow panelists. Really, it's an honor to be sitting with you. My name's Pam Coleman. I'm the director of the New Mexico State Personnel Office. I was most recently in the Obama administration, where I stood up the first ever leadership development program for President Obama. And when the governor-elect at the time asked if I would be interested in taking on this position, my response was, well, you don't say no to Governor Michelle Lujan Grisham, and that it would be an incredible responsibility and to help shepherd the New Mexico employees for the state into a new chapter. Which had been a little bit of a rough go for the past 8 years. And so what I have seen in the shift in how the state employee has been looked at, respected, empowered, included, was something that needed to be upgraded. And I'll be as euphemistic as possible. So with the governor that we have, whose drive and passion for public service and her ambition to make sure that the policies of our government match what's being executed on the ground. That's the first, and I'm just going to defer to my panelists, but first and foremost, the mission and the passion that the governor brings to what we're doing here as a state is what drives all other activities with respect to hiring and recruitment, and makes our job a little bit easier, even though recruiting in the government sector is a little challenging. But I'm happy to go into more of that. But what we're seeing is that when you have a governor who says government is values in action, and those values are to take care of people and to mitigate human suffering and to make life better, then you have a government that's starting off in a much better foot than ended in the last one.
Thank you. Todd.
It's great to be here. My name is Todd McCracken. I'm the president of the National Small Business Association in Washington, D.C. I'm especially happy to be here because I'm a native New Mexican, so it's always good to make it back to the land of enchantment. It's obviously the perfect time to be here. So for those of you who aren't here, I hope you keep coming back. Aren't from here, you keep coming back. The National Small Business Association, we are all about advocating for the needs of smaller companies to start, to grow, and to survive. And as you might guess, a lot of the challenges those companies face, are ones that people might surmise. Are there, getting access to capital, figuring out the regulatory complexity that's out there, dealing with healthcare costs and insurance. But one that has, all of our surveys show that is at the very top of the concerns and the problems that are faced by small companies and small business owners right now are all revolve around employment, finding the right talent, keeping the right talent, trying to figure out how to navigate the increasingly complex world of employee relations. And that's right at the very top of our priorities. So there's a lot of reasons for that. Obviously, we have a very tight job market because the economy is still relatively strong. But there's a lot of other things that underlie that as well, because as there are unique problems that small companies have. First off, most small businesses don't have a dedicated HR professional on staff. A lot of these things are things that the business owner, him or herself, handle directly. And also, we're in a moment now where not only is the job market tight, but we're facing a lot of unique challenges also within that job market. A lot of small companies feel pressure either from the larger companies they may have contracts with, from even governments they have contracts with, from their insurers and from their own perceptions, and also the realities of the business they might be in, to think about the backgrounds of the people they're hiring. So, drug testing is an issue. Hiring people who are formerly incarcerated is an issue. And I think as a country, we've got to really deal with those issues, because right now it's really getting in the way. A lot of our standards around those things are getting in the way of a lot of job growth and opportunity for a lot of companies, a lot of individuals as well. So I'm going to stop there. I think we'll get into a lot more discussion about that as we move on. But smaller companies have a lot of challenges, and one more that I will get into as we get into the discussion is also just sort of matching with the right worker. That's a really difficult problem for small businesses. The right worker might be out there, the company may have the right job for that worker, but finding a way for those two to meet is really tough.
Yeah, and Giovanna, I love the work that I've recently heard about that you're doing in New Mexico. We've had a lot of discussion, especially with foundations earlier, about families and the need for businesses to be family friendly. And I know you're working with the governor's office, so tell us a little bit about your work.
Yeah, sure. Hi, everyone. Giovanna Rossi, and I'm the president and CEO of Collective Action Strategies, which is a consulting firm that really supports leaders, innovative leaders, to create thriving companies and communities. And we do that by looking at individuals and systems and how all of that interplays. And so to answer your specific question about one of our projects is the Family Friendly Business Award and Family Friendly New Mexico. And basically, it's a really exciting nonprofit initiative statewide here, which is actually being modeled in other states now, that supports businesses to adopt and implement family-friendly policies in the workplace. So these family-friendly policies we see are crucial for really adapting to the workforce that we have right now. When we started this work about 10 years ago, actually it was in the Richardson administration, 2 governors ago, we really looked at the workforce and how it's changed over the last few decades. Obviously, we have more and more women in the workforce, and we know that a majority of women are caregivers, either caring for children or dependents, parents. And the workplaces really weren't shifting and changing to meet the needs of the growing workforce, growing women in the workforce. So we did a lot of work over the last years to develop a way to really meet businesses where they are in terms of what family-friendly policies do you already have, and what else could you do? And so we developed the Family Friendly Business Award to really honor and recognize businesses for what they're doing, and then that opens the door to educating them to do a little bit more. And I would like to say that we just gave the first ever platinum level award, which is the highest level award, to the state of New Mexico. We worked closely with Director Coleman here. So the state of New Mexico has 17,000 employees, largest employer in the state. And so they just received the platinum level award, and we have 225 businesses in the program now in New Mexico. Obviously, we have a small population, so that's a lot, you know, in New Mexico. If you're from another state, that might not sound like that much. But 225 businesses impacting 130,000 employees in New Mexico with different kinds of family-friendly policies. And I can share more about that later.
Good. Sean.
Thank you. Thank you, Jemay. Sean Sullivan, CHRO for SHRM, the Society for Human Resource Management. It's a pleasure to be here in Santa Fe, and thank you, Jemay, to you and Innovate and Educate for hosting such a terrific conference. And again, an honor to be up here with the other panelists. So SHRM is a member organization of 300,000 plus HR professionals. Many of those members really do reflect that HR department of one for small businesses, and they typically wear multiple hats to cover a wide range of responsibilities, HR being one of those. The thing that we have seen shift across the recruiting landscape, especially trying to fill this gap in terms of how to, in such a tight labor market, how to be able to fill jobs effectively and get to that really necessary balance in supply and demand and getting right skills to the right place that Todd had covered. We are trying through a number of means to really help HR professionals and businesses tap into underutilized or typically unseen or not tapped into enough labor pools. And so I'll describe those a little bit later as we get into the conversation. But it is something that we try to bring to bear what SHRM is doing in policy work, in our foundation investments, the work we do through our members and our active state councils. New Mexico has a terrific active state council here that generates terrific ideas, and also the applied research that we do. And that's also one thing that we've shifted significantly within SHRM over the last couple of years, going from what had been more academic focus in our research to real applied research for what solutions matter and can make a difference to HR professionals and business.
Cool. So, Todd, what do you, I'm going to ask each of you a question based on your specific role. How many members are in your association?
We've got about 65,000 companies.
65,000 small businesses. From a workforce and hiring perspective, if you could wave your magic wand for what you hear, what would you help do for them? What's the biggest need you're hearing from these small businesses?
I think it really is the matchmaking. It really is finding the right person for the right job at the right time. And it's a huge challenge to these companies because they often, they sometimes can't afford the recruiting companies that work for larger firms. The business owner may, him or herself, be trying to do this in addition to everything else they're trying to do in terms of growing the company. And it's a huge, huge challenge to find those people. If you ask them directly in surveys, you hear, I mean, there's been a lot of discussion earlier today about soft skills, and I thought we had a really great speaker at lunch who admonished us not to use that word anymore, and I can certainly see that. But we hear increasingly from companies about the workers they do find who have the right technical skills, perhaps. They tell us they don't always have the right, what the business owner considers to be the right work ethic sometimes. And that would be a challenge that I'd help them try to resolve also.
Yeah, so it's not just soft skills,
yeah.
It's also work ethic. I mean, will they show up on time?
Exactly.
Right. And just to tell you, Peter, and workforce gurus out there, I know you're working with National Association of Workforce Boards, the Hispanic Chamber of Commerce. What's happening on the Hill up there?
We helped form a group in Washington last year called the Small Business Roundtable. And really, it's what it is a consortium of various groups that do small business policy work, trying to coordinate our efforts a lot better. And we started a new project with the National Association of Workforce Boards that I'm involved in on the business side, running that committee, to try to figure out ways that we can coordinate our work better, and so that we can educate the business community, especially the small business community, better about how to utilize the workforce boards more effectively, and in some cases for small business to let them know they even exist, because a lot of small companies aren't even aware of the workforce boards in some cases. So that's kind of our agenda. It's still sort of in the early stages, but I'm excited about that.
Good. Director Coleman, I'm going to be personal here in that everybody says it takes forever or almost impossible to get a job with the state. It's just the process, and it's hard when you're that big, right? What are you working on? I know we talked on the phone about digital and creating better processes. What are you trying to tackle? And I know you're tackling a lot after 8 years of not a lot.
Yeah, thanks for that question. So it is, from the federal government side, the state government side, the city government side, because the system is merit-based, because everyone must have the opportunity to apply for a job and be filtered through a minimum qualification that comes out of statute and rules, it can feel like it takes longer. And while the process, we are looking for different ways to streamline from everything from how do you even hear about a job, so from a digital perspective, and making sure that we're reaching out to the passive candidates and passive applicants who can make up actually a sizable amount of really fantastic people to hire, are not the people who are necessarily looking for a job today, but people move jobs who are not necessarily looking for a job. Why? Because they want to make a difference. So we need to go be better, and we are getting better at figuring out ways to go after those candidates who would give it a go, but they're not looking for a job today. So we have a social media campaign right now called I Serve NM, which is celebrating state employees, but also that's my gateway drug, but what I really want is for them to be celebrated and then to share it along their own personal networks so that we can get the multiplier effect and the force multiplier of one person's social media account and then to spread it. So this is not news for this crowd use social media. Isn't that a really great way to talk to people? But if you are a state government and you have never talked to people on social media, then it's actually quite gigantic. We're also figuring out better ways to have intern programs that are multi-tiered, so not just a college or a graduate school intern, but high school interns. So you get people in during high school, and then it counts towards their ability to satisfy minimum qualifications as they get into their job. We have something called rapid hires, which we have done in conjunction with the workforce boards and with Department of Workforce Solutions, and opening up opportunities to get past the website right away, which is painful and ugly and terrible, and we all know it. But it's the filtering system for the recruitment side of a software platform. So how can you, if they're being stopped by the technology, then how do we go to the people directly? That's also like a eureka. Let's go to where the people are instead of just waiting back and seeing who applies to our jobs. And we're also figuring out ways that the people who are inside state government, how do they talk about their own jobs to their family and friends? Our state is only 2 million people. That's it. So with San Bernardino, when Reg is up here saying, we have 950,000 people in our county, that's half of our state, and they all live around Albuquerque. So what we want to do is be able to think about the folks we have, 18,000 people in state government, and in New Mexico, Todd can attest to this, people, either you know somebody, you went to high school with them, you grew up next to them, you're related to them, you moved away and you've met them again in DC because everyone wants their green chili. Everybody knows everybody. So if you have state employees proud of their work and talking about their work and figuring out ways and we can provide opportunities to allow them to say there are these other jobs available, not just in your agency, that's a way for us to take advantage of what we already have, which are fantastic people who care about their state and care about their communities. And I could really go on like this for a long time, which is why I'm in my job, because I love the state employee and I love the state system, and figuring out ways to I keep saying that, but we are taking steps to make government more interesting and effective, and that's starting with our governor, who says government can be a force of good, and I'll go back to that's the first thing that I said. So I can really,
That's
you know, I
awesome.
can keep going.
And we're so lucky to have you with your passion for this, so thank you. So Giovanna, in our research that we did in collaboration with the Kellogg Foundation, we worked in Gallup, San 4 counties in New Mexico, and the number 2 factors on employment were transportation and childcare, which to me are both related to family friendly. So is that something that's part of your work? I mean, when you say family friendly, what does that mean?
Yeah. Great question, and I have a very short video that I can show you to demonstrate it, but just real quick, we cover 7 different categories. We just added 3 new categories. So I'll just say them really quick. The first one is all types of paid leave, right? So maternity leave, sick leave, all the paid leave category. The second one is flexible schedules, which is really, really crucial for all levels of workers, especially lower level wage
And may I
workers.
just say that the alternative work schedule is what allowed us to be bumped into the platinum side. The governor issued an executive order for alternative work schedules, which then allowed us to push that template policy out to every single agency, and proudly did we get awarded the platinum. So thank you.
Thank you. That's a really great example of how this program works. It encourages and pushes employers to do better. I think the governor, you know, and you probably wanted to do flexible scheduling anyway, but in looking at getting the award, it was like, oh, let's do it now rather than waiting. So that's a great example. The other categories are economic supports, so higher than average wages in your industry, subsidies for education, childcare. The fourth category is health support, so health insurance, wellness programs, all those types of things. And then we just added 3 new categories. One is pay equity, the other one is diversity and inclusion, and the last one is community engagement. So we actually, speaking of Gallup, we met with a small insurance agent there who was worried that he wouldn't fit into the categories, and he told us about how he paid his employees to attend a community event or sit on a community board in Gallup. And we said, well, that should count, and it helped us craft this new category of community engagement. But just to give you a little idea of what I'm talking about, I'll just play the video.
Great.
I hope.
Uh-oh.
What did I do? Giving me control over this was probably not the best thing.
That's awesome. I really like that. Great. Okay, Sean, can you tell us a little bit about where SHRM is from an HR perspective and the foundation, and what's the most innovative work you'd like to share?
Yeah, thank you, Jamae. So we're really trying to bring that connection together so that the investments that the foundation is able to make, and that often is in either research, scholarships, as well as funding pilot programs from around the country and our membership, and leveraging that again into the kinds of solutions that we want HR professionals to have ready access to. So one example has been in the work that was done on veterans hiring, where the foundation launched and delivered a major research report and really helped expand the notion of what's required to be able to be effective in veterans hiring. When you consider that veterans, there's about 300,000 veterans annually who are transitioning into the workplace, and the need to quickly get them transitioned into meaningful work for them and their families is really critical. One of the things that the foundation did as follow-up to the research project was to take on a pilot program up in Wisconsin with one of our chapter members who kind of raised her hand and said, you know what would help is if we could help business understand what's happening, what's going on with the military that directly translates. And so the way we went about that was the foundation sponsored a series of field trips for business leaders from around Wisconsin to go to one of the Wisconsin training grounds for the military, see the military in action, but they had, if you will, a translator on site who said, great, so now you're watching our teams go through the obstacle course. Here's what they're emphasizing. Here's the learning that's intended behind that. Here's how that translates into the kinds of skills and requirements that you have in small business. So again, I think trying to take anything that seems abstract and a really great concept, but breaking it down into how do I get my hands around that, and why does that make it an effective solution for my business and the kind of workforce that I'm trying to build.
Good. So as much as I wish we had longer, we don't. What I'm going to do is take it upon myself to do some type of a write-up that focuses on these 4 organizations plus the Governor's Small Business Advisor. Did you guys meet?
We did.
Good. Daniel. And put something together that we can get out to closet attendees about the commonalities happening across this, because it's state government, small business, hiring HR professionals, and then someone really working with businesses on family friendly. So I'm going to put something together because I think it could spark conversation across other states on how they could work together and move some of this ahead. So yet one more thing that I'm going to commit to doing as a takeaway, thank you all for being here. We're going to shift, keep you up here, Sean. We're going to do the Hire Awards, which we're in partnership with SHRM New Mexico and the Close It Summit. And Sean has been wonderful enough to present those awards. We have 5 of those companies here with us. So I want to do, first of all, before everybody's gone, and I hope everybody will come back for the 4 to 5 because it's a great conversation with Todd McCracken. Thank you all. Sorry, which one am I talking in now? Right here? All of them. So I want to recognize my team, if they'll stand up. Edie, Tiffany, Risa, Scott. I mean, we could not have done this event without the team. So hands on for my team. Thank you. I know everybody has Edie's personal cell phone, and Tiffany. So I want to recognize the 3 people from SHRM that made this happen: Linda Strauss, Cindy Murphy, and Karen McCool. Thank you so much for making the awards happen. So this year, as I said, we partnered with SHRM to create the National Shift Award. This went all over the country, and we had a lot of nominations. We had incredible responses, and we're recognizing 15 of those businesses. I want to definitely thank the judges, Elizabeth Garlow from Lumina Impact Ventures, Secretary Bill McCanley from New Mexico Department of Workforce, Karen McCool from Stone Associates Human Resource Consulting, Linda Strauss HR Consulting, Nicole Trimble from FSG Talent Rewire, and Jamie Wagner, who is the president of SHRM New Mexico. So thank you, judges. We really appreciate you. And here are the organizations being recognized. There's four levels. The first one is going to Chobani. Turquoise, Valerie Wysolewski. Sorry, Valerie, I know it's not that. Chobani has really done a great job in bridging the skills gap. They have developed an online platform that allows flexibility to employees who may be working on various shifts. The goal of their pilot was for at least 9 of their 14 employees to develop an increased knowledge of the English language. So Chobani has seen an increased interest in the program and is making it available to more employees at Chobani. Congratulations. And we all love Chobani, agree, right? The other one, 2 others, Cornbread Hustle. That's actually not a cornbread company, it's a staffing agency focused on providing second chances. They provide a recovery app free of charge to their employees who are struggling with addiction or are in recovery. They partner with multiple organizations throughout the Dallas area, including Workforce Solutions, Texas Veterans, Veterans of America, Unlocking Doors, and the Prison Entrepreneurship Program. Their goal includes training people to become better employees. So congratulations, Cornbread Hustle. They aren't with us today, but they're watching. Hi. And Ponce's Mexican Restaurant designed a program training that supports upward mobility with their company. All employees can take advantage of that training that provides opportunities to move into higher skills positions, including management. With each new position mastered, employees receive a pay raise. And I know we're seeing a lot of this going across the country, but it's awesome to see how it's just building on itself. Their next steps include working with the Restaurant Opportunities Collaborative to find those who could become a pipeline for hiring in the future. Congratulations, Ponce's. Okay, the next ones are, I'm very happy about my friend Audrey Williams-Lee and Hyatt Hotels. They are silver. Hyatt has raised the bar on their programs and reaching opportunity youth. Through a virtual reality platform combined with non-traditional skills assessment, they've created an approach to attracting and identifying young people who might not otherwise ever get the job. With the help of organizations like the Youth Career Initiative and Grads of Life, their program, which is called Rise High, Rise H-Y, is a lofty future goal to provide opportunities for 10,000 opportunity youth to be hired in the next 5 years. Congratulations, Hyatt. Ability to Work is another silver. They champion an inclusive employment environment, believing that all people are entitled to contribute to their community. Ability to Work exists to give differently abled the same opportunities of typically developing individuals. The 501c3 created Grateful Bites, which is a small cafe in New Jersey that employs differently abled employees in various parts of the restaurant, shadowing chefs and working in the kitchen, the farm, and the catering arm. We'll post all of these if you want to contact them if you're from New Jersey or you just want to reach it out. Congratulations, Ability to Work. Metrics Technology Solutions. We're so excited that they're with us. They already had a healthy veteran population in their aviation arena, but they wanted to find additional hidden talent in the veteran community in all areas that they work. So in 2018, Metas received the Federal Hire Vets Gold Medallion Award, recognizing their commitment to recruit, hire, and retain veterans. Those who join their Veteran Leadership Program receive tuition assistance, leadership training, and additional educational opportunity that provides them a path to senior positions within the company. In return, Metas benefits them by employing and retaining veterans with specialized technical skills, outstanding personal skills, and the ability to adapt. Congratulations. I love Taos. I can't ski it because I'm not good enough, but Taos Ski Valley, we want to recognize them for 2 of their initiatives in developing a workforce with much needed skill sets. Taos Ski Valley was searching for a way to address their struggle to get dishwashers, housekeepers, and maintenance. So through a partnership with UNM Taos, Taos High School, and the New Mexico Department of Vocational Rehab, they developed a program that provided both classroom and work experiencing, resulting in a pathway to employment. They also partnered with UNM Taos to offer a culinary certification with Taos Ski Valley, filling needed roles across their area. Congratulations, Taos. They aren't here. They're only up the hill. Next year, we're going to have a tour to Taos. Steve Patrick offered to do a tour to Taos. So, Very Cool is a final one in this group, I think, right? Okay, Very Cool is Gerald Jobs is the founder. He's on a mission-challenging company to join. He wants to challenge other companies to join them in supporting non-discriminatory hiring practices and creating positive impact and hope for formerly incarcerated individuals and their families. Daryl was a former gang member who has served time, and he worked really hard to straighten out his own life. He eventually founded the company that makes sustainable, environmentally friendly packaging that can replace expanded polystyrene foam packages for shipments that need to stay cool. Daryl Job is determined to give a second chance to former prisoners, and we know how important that is for our workforce. Roughly 1/4 of his company's 45 employees have served time. They not only get a chance to work, but they get ownership in the company through an employee stock option plan. That's awesome. Congratulations. Hot Chicken Takeover is a goal. We got some funny names. Hot Chicken Takeover was founded on the premise of job creation and inclusivity, particularly to create supportive jobs for women and men who have faced significant barriers to entering the workforce, barriers that we know are significant across the country: homelessness, previous incarceration, or experience with addiction. The company offers, after successful completion of specific training, team members learn the skills they need to grow their careers at Hot Chicken Takeover, or transfer those skills to an external role that aligns with their personal growth. Examples of benefits include housing, financial literacy, transportation, recovery, and mental health. Thank you, Hot Chicken Takeover. Congratulations. Tectonic recognized the benefits of a diverse workforce to fill the existing need for qualified software developers in America. They created the Tectonic Apprenticeship Program, registered by the USDOL, and built a platform of diversity, critical thinking, and core foundational engineering skills. Their partners include Microsoft, AWS, Cielo Scholarship Foundation, U.S. Department of Labor, Veterans Affairs, and Texas Industry. By removing barriers that are normally associated with getting a career in technology, Tectonic has disrupted and evolved the ways companies can educate, source, and hire top software development. Congratulations, Tectonic. Televerde, since 1994, more than 3,000 women have been through the Tallo Verde program, resulting in less than 10% recidivism, compared to the 3-year recidivism rate of 68%. Tallo Verde employs incarcerated women at 5 call centers inside, wow, I remember this, inside the Perryville Prison in Goodyear, Arizona, and Rockville Prison in Indiana. Potential employees must go through an interview process and are trained as paid call center representatives for the company while still incarcerated. They've been building relationships with this prison system as well as developing secure technology measures that allow the systems to be used inside prison walls. Tallo Verde recognizes the need to provide wraparound support also for these women who are re-entering society, including the 30% who transition from jobs within prison to employment at Tallo Verde. So that is really amazing. We need more of that. Come on, workforce. And I'm really excited that a New Mexico company has won, Nucinda Credit Union, and they're here with us. Nucinda has received a national recognition, also including Top 25 Innovations in American Government Award from Harvard's Ask Center and Strata Education Pathways from the U.S. Conference of Mayors event. They offer a class to both Albuquerque Public Schools and CNM students, College Central New Mexico. The class is a crossover career opportunity that gives students a balance of career exposure, workforce development skills, and helps them start successful post-secondary pathways in business and banking sectors. In total, 171 students have taken this course since 2015's inception, and from those students, 90 have become Nucinda interns. That's great. Furthermore, of these 90 interns, 23 of them have become full or part-time employees of Nucinda, as nearly 30% of the interns. The curriculum is now being adapted by Santa Fe Public Schools. Just another reason for overall program success. Congratulations. Yay! And last but not least, Veterans United. They wanted to take control of their own narrative in the community, and in the industry, they developed an internship program that serves 2 groups, students of color and student veterans. The process includes identifying high-performing students and placing them in the area of the company that seems to be the best fit, providing training and funding across necessary licenses. Students have been placed in all areas of the company. Veterans United hopes to expose more students of color and student veterans to their company and industry, whether it leads to a permanent job at Veterans United after graduation or just an impactful experience that puts them above and beyond those qualified in their future. Congratulations. And we have 2 platinum winners. One of them is here with us, and I'm thrilled to meet him. And the first one that's not here, but congratulations to Grayston. For more than 35 years, Grayston has been a systems changer, helping people overcome barriers and obstacles to secure and retain permanent employment, while offering a systemic solution to discriminatory hiring methods. Recognized as one of the country's leading social enterprises, Grayston is in a strong position to grow their business and impact through the creation of the Grayston Center for Open Hiring. The center leverages regional business expertise, financial resources, and values-based leadership, challenging hiring of the status quo of hiring, providing job opportunities along with coaching, mentorship, training, and wraparound support. Today, Grayston Bakery employs 115 open hire employees. The wait list at the bakery is 6 to 8 months, with most entry-level bakers remaining at the bakery for about 2 years. At that time, they're either promoted or secure a better position, higher paying elsewhere. Grayston believes that their open hiring program holds the potential to change the world. One company, one job, one person at a time, and we hope that it inspires other businesses to follow. Congratulations. These are all companies for Grants of Life to reach out to. Okay, last but not least, I'm so excited about Edwin's Leadership and Restaurant Group. They were They were born from a break that found her Brandon Krotosowski, you can tell me how you received early in life, and has grown into a 6-month program conducted at Edwin's Restaurant in Cleveland, Ohio. He found out he won this 2 days ago, and he is here with us. So we are happy. As well as within prison walls. Brandon's approach is simple. Aim those re-entering society with a skill set and a smile. I just got goosebumps reading that. The program provides career pathways. Now I'm going to start crying. Career pathways rooting in the techniques of traditional French cuisine and the fundamentals of fine dining hospitality, providing tuition-free education in culinary arts while offering the support necessary for successful re-entry, including free housing, life skills, access to healthcare, financial literacy, and more. Nearly 100% of their students have been incarcerated. They were predominantly low-income learners and are from Cleveland's most vulnerable neighborhoods. Their 315 alumni have a recidivism rate of less than 1%. Wow. Edwin's Restaurant has been lauded as one of Cleveland's top-rated establishments by the Washington Post, the New York Times, Esquire, and others. Graduates of the Edwin's Leadership Programs evolved from draining resources in the correctional system to contributing resources via payroll, tax, and spending. Edwin's Second Chance Life Skills Center offers students and recent graduates assistance finding free or affordable housing, assistance with childcare, medical care, financial literacy, identification, legal issues, and more. Edwin's Butcher Shop and Training Center gives students extensive butchery training, and the Butcher Shop actually employs 12 graduates. Soon to open next door is Edwin's Bakery, a venture that will provide additional skills for students, management opportunities for graduates, and continue the renewal of the Buckeye neighborhood in Cleveland. If you haven't seen it, be sure to look for Knife Skills, K-N-I-F-E, a documentary about Edwin's Restaurant that received an Academy Award and nomination in 2018, and a recent segment on the restaurant and its program just was featured on CBS This Morning Saturday, and now he's at Close It. Wow. We are thrilled that you flew out here, Brandon. Thank you. Thank you.
I'd like to say a few words.
I would love you to.
Well, thank you for everyone that remains in this room and watching us virtually online. We're very proud to accept this award, not just the Edwins, but on behalf of the hundreds of thousands who are returning home from prison, whose voice is oftentimes marginalized. I'll keep it short. If you haven't heard of Edwins, check it out. Okay, it's online. You can see what we do, and I'll leave that up to you. But the importance of flying out here for a brief time was to say in flesh to you that this is just the beginning of a fight. And I'm not sure what you believe in, but just believe that Edwins is going to be in this fight until the end, helping returning citizens and help them gain their voice, and not only that, fulfill their potential in this society. So, ladies and gentlemen, thank you again for this moment, and I really look forward to next year. Regardless of where it's hosted, although Santa Fe is quite nice, I look forward to next year's event. Thank you.
And on behalf of SHRM and Innovate and Educate, I'd like to congratulate all of these terrific honorees today. One more round of applause for them, please. At SHRM, we talk about elevating HR, and we do that, we have a passion about it, because we believe that is a pathway to creating better workplaces, better world. All of the examples and all of the awards that you just heard about go absolutely to that point of creating better workplaces, better world. We can't think of better examples to be able to provide to you and to hold up to other folks who are trying to find innovative ways to be able to make a difference, help their business, and help their communities. It's a powerful combination, and it's an honor to witness it here today. So thank you all for your time and also for your great energy. Have a great afternoon.
Next, enjoy your final learning sessions And we'll see you back here in the ballroom in 1 hour.
And while everybody's leaving, we had one more raffle and we drew it so we wouldn't bother you. Voxy Global gave 15 seats, 4-month pilot. And Voxy Global is a killer app for Spanish to learn English, right? Spanish to English. And the winner is Jennifer Case Navarez of New Mexico TechWorks. Woohoo! Okay. Everybody can go to a session. Big, awesome, come back at 4 o'clock, and then we have beer and wine. Okay? Peter?